Okay, thank you and good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Town of Wakefield Board of Appeals for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. We'll start with a roll call of attendance. Chip Tarbell.
Here.
Jim McBain.
Here.
Amy Wall.
Here.
Joe Pride.
Here.
Tom Lucy.
Here.
Greg McIntosh.
Here.
And Mike Feely.
Here.
Thank you. All right, we'll proceed to our legal notice. Amy, take it away.
All right. Consistent with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and barring gatherings of more than 10 people, this meeting will be by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and or listen to the meeting in real time. Persons who wish to do so are invited to click on the following link. If you do not have a camera or microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number: 1-301-715-8592, meeting ID 856-3356-3048, passcode 731500. Please use dial-in or computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and video recorded. 1, call to order and roll call. 2, continued hearings. 3, new hearings. 21-38, Elite Metal Framing and Construction, application for a party aggrieved appealing the cease and desist order notice from the building inspector dated 10/23/2020. This property is shown as map 39A, lot parcels 32B/C of the assessor's map, and is located at 611 Salem Street. 21-39, William Morris IV and Jennifer Morris, application for a special permit under Article 4, Section 190-22A1F of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, seeking to add an accessory apartment to a single-family dwelling. This property is shown as map 02, lot parcels 07H of the assessor's map, and is located at 141 Parker Road. 21-40, 21-41, 1-42, 62 Foundry Street LLC, application for a special permit under Article 6, Section 190-32 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, seeking a special permit and site plan approval in conjunction to allow 58-unit mid-rise apartment building with a mix or combination or other uses, including retail, service establishments, and or restaurants. Application for a special permit under Article 6, Section 190-32.1 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, seeking a reduction and or alterations to dimensional controls which were required under Section 190-32D and or Table 2, Table of Dimensional Regulations. The requested reductions and or alterations may include and are not limited to requirements relating to front, side, and rear setback, height, floor area ratio, building coverage, and open area. Application for a variance under Article 10, Section 190-66 from the requirements and or standards for off-street parking and loading under Article 7 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw. This property is shown as map 13, lot parcels 104A plus and 104G of the assessor's map, and is located at 62 Foundry Street and 76 Foundry Street. Am I reading other matters?
Typically, no, that's not.
No, I don't think so. Yep. Okay. Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Amy.
Mhm.
Okay. So you can see we have several matters on our agenda this evening, of which we've received requests from attorney to continue a couple matters. So we'll take those up first in case anyone is here just for those hearings. So from attorney Brian McGrail, dated February 24th, 2021, regarding M-Bar Wakefield LLC at 500 Main Street, Wakefield. Case numbers 21-29, 30, and 31. Requesting that we continue this matter to our meeting on March 10th, 2021, and that we're still in the process of working with the Traffic Advisory Committee and Department of Public Works Engineering Division. So the board would entertain a motion to continue that hearing to March 10th.
I move that we continue this to March 10th.
Second.
Do any discussion? All in favor, Chip?
Yes.
Jim? Amy?
Yes.
Yes.
Jim, thank you. Joe,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
Thank you. So if anyone's here for 500 Main, that will next be heard March 10th. The next one is also from Attorney Brian McGrail, dated today, February 24th, regarding Elite Metal Framing and Construction at 611 Salem Street, case number 21-38. As you can see, this was a new hearing, a yet as unopened hearing, requesting that we continue this to the April 14th, 2021 hearing. And we've spoken with the building inspector, and we were in the process of filing related applications with the Board of Appeals in an effort to resolve the appeal. Also, please let this letter confirm on behalf of my client that they agree to extend the time for the Board of Appeals to render and or file a decision on this matter until June 18, 2021. So the request is to continue this as yet unopened hearing to April 14th.
I move that we continue this hearing till April 14th.
Second. Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, Chip,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Thank you. So those two hearings, again, will be heard at those stated meetings, Board of Appeals. So now I will stop sharing as we start to move into the hearings that we will hear tonight. Starting with our first continued hearing, cases 21-22, 23, and 24, 168 Lexington Street LLC at 525 to 527 Salem Street.
Good evening, Mr. Chair,
Good evening, Brian.
members of the board. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail, representing the applicant. Our team is here again tonight. Owner, on behalf of the ownership, is Bob Zareski, who is here. Chris Barajas is our site civil. And Peter and Jeff are here from Phoenix Architects. I see Jeff in the box there. So to refresh the board's memory on this, we were given, I guess, a direction / mandate from the board to work on the architectural design with the primary goal to reduce the height of the building and preferably to eliminate a story on this. The board designated board member Jim McBain to work with our architects in that regard. They all have worked very hard over the past few weeks on this. My client, Bob, to his credit, has been committed to this goal financially, spending a lot of time and resources with redesign with the architects to hopefully satisfy Jim. And I'm sure you'll hear from Jim McBain tonight on his position. I'm rather excited on what we've been able to accomplish on this. I'm going to share the screen here if I can. So Jeff will go through this in some detail. So, you know, we've also had to make some revisions to the site. But at the end of the day, we have achieved the goal that was the direction of the board. If you remember, initially, it was stated that just the massing wasn't right on this. We tried to trim back the sides of the building. Board said that's still not enough. We really want to see an effort to reduce a story on this building. And we have been able to accomplish that, as I've stated. This is the rendering that now shows it is a 3-story building rather than 4. And you can see, and also through the work progress with our architects, Jim actually created a massing model, which I'm sure he might want to share with the board, that really shows how this fits. And now you can actually see that the building next door is taller than this building. It steps up from 2 to 3 to basically a taller building. You know, I think it's 3, but really 4 because it's an office building with higher floors. So it steps up nicely. The other thing that we've been able to do with this, the way this project was originally designed was to have 21 all two-bedroom units with a small office. You know, that's a commercial component that will really be used for the management office of the building, as we talked about. And now with this redesign, what we've gone to, instead of 21 2-bedrooms, we now have 12 1-bedrooms, 11 2-bedrooms, for a total of 23 residential rather than 21. with one office. The net reduction on this is interesting. Originally proposed 21 two-bedrooms was 21 two-bedrooms was a total of 42 bedrooms in the building. And 23 units now with 12 one-bedroom and 11 two-bedroom is a total of 36 bedrooms. So we're reducing that by 6 bedrooms in the entire building. We think it fits. It's a lot of hard work has gone into this. And it also trickled over to Chris Barrages, because we had to do, the way this was basically accomplished, you'll see, is to extend the building towards the back, to take the top floor off and kind of put it as an extension on the back. And that related to some site changes that had to be accomplished in the back of the building, some parking space adjustments. It results in some of the parking spaces we're reducing to 8.5 feet rather than the typical 9. Bob has a history with his other rental buildings that works, not a problem. And it allows us to meet the parking requirements, considering that some of the land is now being taken up by the extension on the back of the building. So that's what we've accomplished. I think, if I may, Mr. Chair, I'd like to hand it over to Jeff and allow him to kind of walk through the board and explain how we accomplished that architecturally. And then, if you want to have an architectural discussion, perhaps you would want to hear from your designated board member on this. And then Chris can step in and give a presentation on how the site plan is affected by this. We've also submitted last week, we've revised our landscaping plan to make sure that it meets the new footprint on the building.
Okay, let's get into it.
Great. Jeff, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Thank you to the board.
Let me know. You can let me know what you want to do, Jeff, as you go along. Okay.
Yeah, I might take over control of the screen if that's
Oh, all right.
with
Yeah.
you.
Let me stop sharing. Yep.
I'll share the same file, but
It's all yours. Good idea.
Scroll through with it. Yeah, so I'll start by sort of addressing the concerns the board had, and then once again showing you how we changed our design to lessen the scale of the building and its impact on the street. For starters, here's Chris's site plan. I just wanted to point out that this existing brick building is a few feet in front of ours. So I know there's some comments that our building was closer to the street, but I think it was more of a rendering issue that's not really showing how it actually is, where in our rendering, it seems as though if that building to the left is set further back, when it actually, our building is going to be behind this one. So that was the first thing I just want to point out so you guys are aware. As Brian touched base on, we removed the entire 4th floor. So the scale of this building is completely reduced. It's more in touch with its neighbors. It's stepping up from 2 stories to 3 to 3. So as far as scale of the neighborhood, I think it's really starting to fit in quite nicely. As before, we still have brick to relate to these surrounding buildings, and then more residential materials on the upper floors to have a less commercial look. So some of the feedback we got last time is that the detail wasn't wrapping that corner of the building. So we spent a lot of time analyzing this facade and bringing in bays similar to the front, and then with paint colors and materiality, creating this cadence. So it's starting to have that same aesthetic as you come around to that side. So when you're coming from the Linfield portion of town down Salem Street, it's consistent with the front facade. So it doesn't seem like anything's been cut short. Similar front facade to last time. We worked with Jim. There's some concern about the cornice detail. So we made that a little bit bigger, but not so much that it's monumental. We still want it to be more minimalistic, but not a forgotten detail at the same time. Once again, a more residential entryway, showing trim patterns, brick facade, hardy plank siding above that. The back was part of the redesign issue. So we have parking on the first level and then two stories of residences above. Some of the feedback we got was trying to create this central alleyway, working with Jim McBain. So you can see these are the 2 handicap parking spaces. This clear space here is going to act at where the residents can come in It becomes a focal point. We switched the office towards the back. Once again, the reason for this was as you're coming in, you have the office for the building. If tenants have any concern or if there's new tenants coming in, then they can walk right in the door. So it's this public aspect coming in from not the main entrance, but what will be used the most. So similar aesthetic, once again, having that central focal point in the back. And then going into the details, having a larger traditional cornice that you can see here. So we worked with Jim quite a bit to get that residential flavor and then the scale of the building down. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you guys have any comments at this time, that'd be great.
Yeah, actually, and if I can just add, I miscalculated that. So basically, before we had 42 bedrooms, and now we had 34, not 36. So it's a net reduction in bedrooms in the building of 8 bedrooms.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I will say pick a few points here. At our last meeting, basically, there was the discussion about the height, and I was tasked to work with them. And at that meeting, I had thought about maybe we push that second floor, upper floor, fourth floor back a bit. But as we discussed, as I got into discussions with them, they had already sort of looked at what the pancake they've done right now, which is 3 floors as opposed to a 4th floor. So after that, it was real more trying to bring the front around to the sides and the back and get the architecture right, basically. So I got to say, Phoenix took the lead on this, at least to come up with how to deal with taking the top floor off and extend it out the back, which I think worked out extremely well. And after that, basically, it was merely just looking at the details and how we can wrap the corner and make things look right all the way around. But, you know, as already has been pointed out about 3 times, basically, this is a stepping up project from the 2-story to the 3-story to almost a 3.5-story building, which is something I've recommended in the past at other locations. So they've done an extremely good job, basically, at pulling this together, in my opinion.
Thank you, Jim.
Other board members?
I think it looks much nicer.
Yeah, I have a question. It might be more for engineering though. We had talked about last time, and I think Chris wasn't here, and that might be why it wasn't answered at the last meeting, but I think one of the concerns too was the building was, if I remember right, starting like 4 feet above the sidewalk. Is that, and maybe I'm completely misremembering that too. So
No, you're correct.
Feel free to say you're completely wrong.
No, you're correct. There is and you can see it in this rendering that's before you, basically.
Yeah,
There is a slight rise, basically, between the sidewalk and the walkway to the front door, basically. It doesn't really affect, in my opinion, it doesn't really affect the site in any significant manner.
I guess I just want to know what having driven by the site, admittedly, I haven't walked around because I don't know who's there, if anyone now, but
Chris,
driven by it a bunch. What's the?
Sure, just to
It
give you an
doesn't look
idea,
like there is an increase.
Chris Spuragis here. Can anyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so the existing building, you may recall, is a building that was closer to the street, up around elevation 79.5 or so. And where our first floor is going to be 3 feet higher than that. So it's about 3 feet higher than the existing building site. And our building is set back a little bit more than that existing building.
All right, so it's just different. No, I honestly, I think this meets a lot of concerns, so nothing other than that.
I think it looks a lot better. I think it's pretty responsive to our comments too.
So Chris, I have a question. Why, if the existing site is 3 feet lower, why do we have to raise it?
So we, believe it or not, in the existing condition, there's a hole in the middle of the site. And that has no outlet. It was really kind of strange from a stormwater management standpoint. And it sits lower than the low spot of the property sits a little bit lower than the office building on the corner of Pleasure Island. And we're lower than the parking lot on the adjacent side, on the other side of the project, if you will, on the east side, which is the 545 office building site. And so, you know, by lifting it up, it kind of blends a little bit better between the two buildings, I think. The other thing that's driving the height of the building slightly is the stormwater management design. We do have to comply with DEP stormwater management standards. And so when we dug our test holes, we have an estimated seasonal high groundwater table at around elevation 73 or so, and we have underground stormwater management. And so those chambers have to be a certain distance above the high groundwater. And sometimes, you know, we have to back into those elevations. And this is how we arrived at a first floor elevation of 82.5.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question.
Sure.
What's the logic of reducing the width of the parking spaces in a rental building, and how? I think you said that's worked in other rental buildings. What is the code asked for?
9 feet.
It's 9 feet.
9 by 18, right, is your,
9 by 18, and these would be 8.5 by 18. So the length isn't being reduced, just the width a little bit. And Bob has 8-foot spaces or 8.5 in a lot of other buildings, and he's never had a problem with that. Plus, you know, I mean, our code is interesting because one or 2 bedroom units, you need 1.5 parking spaces. Before we were all 2 bedroom, and now, as I mentioned, 12 are going to be 1 bedroom.
So what is the parking count, Brian?
Chris, can you maybe
Absolutely.
bring that up on the plane? Can you stop sharing for a minute, Jeff? Thank you.
Yep.
Chris will bring that up, Mr. Field.
Yeah, it's okay to share my screen?
yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Well, 1 and 2 bedrooms are both 1.5 per, so.
Yeah, okay.
So can everyone see the site plan on the screen here?
No, man.
Just gonna blow it up a little bit. Zoom in, Chris.
Yep, no problem. So this is our grading plan. I'm going to go over to our layout plan, and let's see here. This is our utility plan, and then the layout plan. We have a building that has 23 residential units, and so if you divide 23 by 1.5, the required number of parking spaces is 35. We have a little bit of office space inside the building, not much. It's on the first floor, and we're providing 36 parking spaces. There are 13 across the back row here, and then underneath the second floor overhang, we have another 8 spaces here, and then a row of 12 spaces, a row of 15 spaces along the property line on the east side here. For a total of 36, we have 1 extra parking space.
And the length is the same, so it's not a matter of backing into people.
Yeah, and the other thing, yeah, Mike, and the other thing too is they're not all 8.5. Can you maybe highlight that for the board, Chris, because that's a point.
Sure. There are 15 spaces that measure 8.5, that 8.5 foot width by 18. There are the 13 spaces back here, and then 3 additional spaces here. The rest of these spaces all along here are more traditional 9 by 18, and there are 20 of them. So 20 and 16.
And under the building are 9 by 18 too, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And there is some precedent, Brian. Although it was a slightly different approval process, the Tarrant Lane project, if you recall, did have compact spaces, both 8.5 by 18 and 8.5 by 16 spaces that the board approved as part of the comprehensive permit for that project.
Thank you.
Chris, I have a question for you too. On the east side of the building, that walkway is there any way that could get tightened in closer to the building and add a couple of like parallel spots there?
Let's see, that's a good question. Let's take a look at the grading plan real quick.
Chris, we got to be careful if there's any bedroom windows on that first floor over there.
And
Yeah, I also just get concerned. There's a lot of pavement already.
Yep.
We just keep eliminate, I know how crucial parking is, but if we are greater than the bylaw already,
I know, I'm just concerned about guest parking and things like that. You know, if it was, even if it's just, if they can keep a small portion of grass in there, but just, I don't know what that width, what the, that driveway there, what that's gonna be, if there's enough, even if they can add like 3 more spaces right there.
Yep, so that would require that we probably build a wall, on the high side. And it'll get a little bit tight. We have a small set of stairs here going into this entry off of the walk. So it might screw that up a little bit. But there's not a lot of room. And to Mr. Tarbell's point, I kind of liked this site plan because we were able to, considering how small the site is and how this lays out, we do have providing quite a bit of greenery, in and around the building, which I think looks nice.
And theoretically, guest parking is built into the bylaw. And then in addition with this reduction in bedrooms to a lot of 1-bedrooms now, hopefully that would alleviate some of the concern too.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And
Bob,
families.
Bob, are you, if I may, Mr. Chair, Bob Zaresti, you there?
Yep, I
Can
mean,
you maybe just talk of your experience, as I mentioned, firsthand to the board, and what your experience with the 1-bedroom units and parking?
yeah, just on average of all the apartments that we have between Melrose, Malden, I would say 99.9%, it's usually averages out to 1 space per unit. And that's with a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms. A lot of people just seem to be they're down to 1 cars and they're using either the commuter rail or sharing rides. But that's what, based on over 300 units, we average about one spot per unit.
Thanks, Bob.
Well,
Okay, any other questions, board members? All right. On the architecture and site, any questions on site? We've kind of gone between the two, but is there any other questions from the board on the site updates, or Chris, do you want to take us through anything we didn't already cover on the site changes you had to make as a result of the architectural and layout changes?
Yeah, just going through my notes, I was, if I was going to do a presentation, Mr. Chairman, it was, we have 23 units now, 36 parking spaces. We've, let me just share my screen. I'll just point out a couple of very minor things.
Okay.
Back to the site plan here. We separated our municipal solid waste or trash from the recycling, where this area here, the enclosed dumpster, is strictly for municipal solid waste. And we moved our recycling under the overhang along the backside of the sidewalk here. So that's a change to the site plan. And just in response to some engineering comments that we had, we separated our 2 stormwater management areas so that one strictly collects roof runoff and one strictly collects parking lot runoff. We had one larger one before. It really didn't make a difference. It's just separating the 2. So that was it for changes.
the recycling, Chris, what's your thought with the recycling under the building? How will it get emptied? And how recycling becomes more and more popular.
Right. We put it closer to the building because it's people are emptying out their recycling. It seems like there's more recycling these days than, like you said, than MSW. And Bob's group is going to be managing the building, and these containers will just get wheeled out, for on those trash pickup days. These are small 4x3, roll-off containers.
So where do they get rolled out to?
So
I'm looking at, I'm a logistical type of guy. You got those containers there. Do they go out over the sidewalk and through a parking spot that's filled? does it come over the grass strip and down to the driveway? How do they actually move out to get emptied? Or are they gonna end up somewhere else?
So, in short, you have a couple of options. They're either going to get rolled out over the sidewalk, out to here, to be placed next to the municipal solid waste, at the time trash pickup happens, or if one of these spaces happens to be open on trash day, they'll take them out over this area here to move them over to this area temporarily, so that the trash truck, if you will, or the recycling truck can come in and take them away, and then they get rolled back to their position here.
Is there going to be an on-site manager?
I'll let Bob answer that question. They manage quite a few apartments. Bob?
Yeah, we'll be not on time all the time, but on call. We're on call 24 hours a day with all the apartments. So if there's any issue with the trash companies, we have either with the security videos or any direct line with them. They keep in contact with us on all our properties. So
are your trash guys responsible for emptying these barrels wherever they are on site, or how? I'm just,
well,
the logistics of where they are to where they're coming doesn't make sense to me.
Well, there's two separate, believe it or not, there's two separate trucks that come. One truck will come with the solid waste, then there's another recycling truck. When the recycling truck pulls up, those dumpsters for the recycling will be left there all the time, and they're responsible to move them to where they can pick them up with their trucks and then bring them back to the same spot.
So are these six like little roll-off 6-yarders or 2-yarders? Or?
Yeah, they're 2-yard containers.
Yeah.
On
Okay.
wheels.
Okay.
Yeah, and we actually like to keep the recycling separate from the solid waste. It tends to make the tenants actually do more recycling. So it actually helps out. Otherwise, if they get too close to the dumpster, if they don't want to squish a box, they end up throwing it in the dumpster. So
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, our package also included, it looks like an updated landscape plan. Were there adjustments you want to go through as well, Brian?
Chris, could you bring that up? If not, I have it. Do you want me to do it, Chris? You're muted.
Did James do this again?
No,
No, I don't have it handy, Bob.
I do.
Okay, go ahead. This was Elliot Brundage. He was also landscape architect on the Tarrant Lane project.
Okay.
There you go. You can blow it up. Chip, you want to see the planting schedule?
Please.
Is it big enough or no? There you
One
go.
more click would be great.
Zoom.
That good?
Maybe you want to keep it smaller.
Okay.
I think he was kidding.
Brian, it's the traditional comments, which I thought, it's important as we try to scale these projects right off with this. And I like the fact that they have 3 trees out front, because the earlier pictures weren't showing the road trees.
Yeah. And those are
That
3
they
to 3.
should be bumped to a 3-inch caliper, just the usual. That
So
we
those,
want.
Chip, you can't see it, it's too small, but the 3 out front are, let me see, there's actually 5 of those, because there's one here.
Yeah.
3,
They're-
4,
Are
5.
they the 3.5?
They're 3.5 right now, spec.
Perfect.
And there's also a note down here, all landscaped areas to be irrigated.
Yeah.
I think that was there before, but this site, what was updated, I guess.
I'm kind of paranoid with that note, as you know.
But other than the caliper on that, was there any other changes to the quantity or the layout or anything with the building changes?
Just in this area where we change, the overhang, where the site plan had to be adjusted. We wanted the landscape architect to look at this to make sure. This was a bigger dumpster area, so now we're able to fit a tree in here.
And Chris, on which plan is it noted that all curbs are vertical granite?
So it is not it is not shown or called out on our plans. The only vertical granite that we're proposing on this plan are the roundings at the entrance driveway. We're proposing a bituminous berm throughout the rest of the parking area.
That's not our standard.
Not
So you
happening.
guys should discuss that.
Not happening.
He'll be torn up the first winter. We ask all our clients, to do vertical granite. That's a kind of a standard that we're going for at this point.
For years, actually, and I don't think we've deviated from it, to be honest. Right? I mean, certainly not with any of these types of projects.
No, he got away with concrete at Tarrant Lane because it was a 40B, but
Well, somebody else did, but
no, Chris did.
no.
He remembers the conversations,
Yeah.
and we got quite a bit of it at Tarrant Lane too, but so.
Yeah, we did a little bit of horse trading over there. You know, we agreed
We
to
did,
do, vertical granite, you know,
There's
along
not
the
so many
sidewalk.
horses on this one.
Okay.
All right, so that'll be added to the plans, please. I'll make a note,
Yes.
Brian. Okay.
Yep.
And do we have the paver selection somewhere listed? I'm sorry if I missed it.
So they're called out on the landscaping plan, but not specifically. They're just referred to as concrete pavers.
Right, so at some point that a type will get picked, right?
That's right. You can see the shape, and then we also have a paved walkway, and then paved patio areas in a couple of spots. But underneath the overhang, there are areas that are called out to be treated with concrete pavers.
Right, so Chris, just everything needs to be just like the siding material and everything else. When you spec it, we just need to see, we need to know what's getting built so that the town and everybody else knows what's been approved.
Sure. So on Elliot's landscaping plan, he does a nice job with hatching and labels, and it's very easy to see the different materials.
Perfect.
I would-
When you guys get to that point.
Well,
I want-
I think what Chip is, I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
I want to see that in with the building materials, basically, the photographs that we have basically that show the detail, basically materials from the siding and the like. So that those things should be put on that sheet. So we know what the color is, the size of they are, and like, if they want to buy it out differently, then at least we have a gauge to go against. Otherwise, we're just talking words.
Yeah. So
That's easy enough to add. Sure.
you're saying, Jim, you'd like it on this sheet?
Yes,
Or on its own sheet. I
All
mean,
materials, yeah.
But included with materials, yeah.
I think it can be squeezed on that sheet.
Is there anything else that we think is not already here, other than the pavers? Just making notes.
Railings. The
Okay.
railing system that they're using at the balconies.
Oh, and I don't know if I missed, is there something around the dumpster, or is it just sitting there?
Chris, you want to,
Sure. It's enclosed. Would you like me to let's go back to the
you
site.
need to spec that as well as to what type of fencing and.
Sure. Let's take a look at the detail sheet real quick here. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like we need to add that detail to the site plan set. So right now, what we show is just an enclosed dumpster area. Typically, we'll call out is a stockade style fence, to block the dumpster from view. So we'll provide details on that.
And
Do we
same
have
with the recycling area.
So for the recycling area, we have not enclosed that space. How do you feel about that?
I think
That
I'd
would be
rather see
in
include-
my opinion, that would be a building preference.
Hmm.
If you want to, I think it's tough to lift a lid and throw and open a door. And if you're trying to get people to use it, it's,
Well, generally they're plastic and they have a different color for each product, basically. So
these are 2-yard metal, 4-wheeled roll-out dumpsters, what we
okay.
were just told.
That's correct, just to have some volume.
All right, so unless the board has a specific request or mandate, leave it
No.
up, leave it up to them. But
Well, I would think if they should at least have sides. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't think it looks very classy to have 3 dumpsters sitting there by your parking and as you come, I mean, people
Right.
are gonna be using this.
Over time, they're gonna look, the paint's gonna chip off, they're gonna look lousy.
Talk about it as a development group and see what you think.
Okay.
Do we have any fencing between this project and the 2 neighbors on either side?
So there is no fencing proposed. We're proposing to leave it open.
So is there, where the retaining is there, what's the drop off between the 2 properties?
So it's 1 to 2 feet. It's very little. Let me go to the grading plan. I believe they're a little bit higher than us over here, and we're a little bit higher than them over here.
Is on the right, is that going to disturb the trees that are there that the neighbor has?
So let me show you the grading plan. So along the neighbor's side of the property line, there's a pretty extensive stone wall.
Okay,
Let me zoom in here. And so we have to stay on our side of that stone wall. So that's the existing stone wall that runs along the property line. And we have to do a little bit of retaining on our side.
So again, Chris, that retaining wall should get called out on your, on the material sheet as well.
Okay.
it does look like there's a fence on the left side.
So let's just go over to the left side here. Similar to the east side, on the west side, there's also an existing stone wall along the property line, and this fence-like symbol that you see is a silt fence. It's just it's a little erosion control because we are just a little bit higher than them, and we don't want to make a mess on their side of the property line.
Yeah, that's just for construction phase.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And it's going to be laid right against their existing stone wall, which runs right along the property line.
Okay, great.
Okay, anything else?
We haven't seen any vents or any, what the materials of those are going to be, or where they're going to be placed, or any of the mechanicals or anything.
Let's go back to that.
Good
Jeff, you want to hop back in here? Chris, can you stop sharing?
Yeah, they're not currently called out, so we'll make sure those are in the next round. We'll obviously make sure that they're hidden as well, so it's not.
Well,
front and
show us what you're using at the same time. The other thing is that there's a signage over the front door with an address, basically, I guess.
Yep.
Like to see a little more on that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll spec a product on that.
Some sort of pin letters, numbers, whatever you're thinking. Yeah. Okay, and in some cases, the vents might be on the facade and some might go up to the roof. So again, we just want to see what the facade will look like with where those things may be placed, right?
Yep. The goal is to get most of them vented through the roof. There will be some on the side on this location here. So we'll call that out on the plan, and we'll get you a product spec as well.
You don't see a transformer on the site plan at all?
Yeah, it's there. It's there and is surrounded with planting.
Did I miss it?
Front corner, is it by the
It's
street?
it's a lower left.
Front left-hand corner?
Yep.
I remember it being talked about.
Yeah, it's there because there's a telephone pole to feed it at that
Okay,
location.
and what's the situation with gas these days and electric meters?
There isn't any gas.
Is there truly no gas still?
So out on this property, I don't believe there is gas, but I will double check.
No, there won't be gas. They won't allow it.
I'll take that back. There is a gas main in the street.
Yeah, but they're not opening new services basically, except for residential.
Yeah. I
Okay.
just went through this on another project. The Wakefield Light Department will not allow, they won't have a gas. They won't allow gas service here.
And where do we think electrical meters are gonna go?
We're open on either the left side.
Yeah, so once you figure that out, how are you gonna screen them and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yep.
Have a
Usually it's a-
discussion with Peter.
You know,
Ends
it's
up
always
being-
an add-on at the 11th hour.
Yep.
And it becomes an ugly bank of meters that we then wish we screen those somehow. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Dave, I'd like to just make a soapbox comment that I appreciate the work that Phoenix did and that Jim did this was a tough building when we first saw it. This, I think, in my opinion, works, and it's always nice not to have fight, but to have people embrace our comments and again, make it a better project at the end. I'm off
Thank
my
you.
soapbox now, sorry.
That's fine. It was brief. Okay. So I'm going to open it to the public. Let's think about, there's certainly a few next steps here. So let's think about that. You know, what we want to circle back on several of these notes we've made, obviously next time. And I think there's still a few more punch list things we got to get to close, potentially close all aspects of it off. But in the meantime, there's no other materials. Gail, I stamped the plans that they gave us. No other correspondence. So at this time, I'll open it up to the public. If anyone has a comment or question, ask you to raise your hand in the Zoom room. I'll try to call on you in order. Not seeing anyone waving. Not seeing anyone raise a hand. Going once, twice, okay. Not seeing anyone raising hands, so I will close the public testimony for the evening. So as I said, next meeting, circle back on some of these punch list items, see updates to plans as needed, materials list, etc. What else?
I think it would be appropriate to start seeing an O&M plan.
Order of conditions.
Yeah,
Construction schedule.
Good catch.
We covered lighting, right? That was already covered. I know we covered going through the usual punch list of things. Right, we covered lighting.
Yeah, there's some
Yes.
light fixtures on that sheet, and there was also a lighting plan with the intensity.
Yeah, we did cover it.
Okay, so does that sound reasonable? Circle back on the open notes from today and those three other items for next meeting?
I got them all.
I think the only other two that, and look at my list, basically, would be the roof equipment locations and the elevations, and particularly the elevator override. When I look at North Avenue, basically the vent on the top of that is horrendous.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so a roof elevation and elevator override, so something that shows the roof. Okay,
And then, Mr. Chairman, could we also ask Mr. McGrail to outline, what relief he's looking for on this project again? I know we talked about it at the beginning, but just to go over the findings we need to make.
right, because things have changed. Sometimes the request is made for
Correct.
certain things that end up not needing to be
Correct.
granted by the board, right? So that sounds reasonable. Brian, you got all that, right?
I do. I'll be prepared.
All right.
Do we know where the water meter is going to be? Is it in ground pit or is it above ground?
Usually it's in the building, isn't it?
I remember something with 600 basically where it was outside the building, I thought.
I think they usually like to have it in. I don't know. Well, why don't we get the answer, but
I can ask the question and report next meeting.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay,
are we going to try to continue this to the next meeting?
Brian said he'd be ready, so yes, that would be March 10th.
Yep, we'll be ready.
I move that we continue this to March 10th.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
Thank you. That's unanimous. All right, thank you for the updates, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you very
have a
much.
good night. Mhm. Okay, moving right along. Our next continued hearing, 21-36, Charles Realty LLC, Charles J. Doherty, manager at 404 Lowell Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael McCarthy, representing the applicant. Joining us are CJ Doherty, a principal of the applicant, Shane Losey, the project architect, and Paul Finocchio, the project surveyor / engineer. Everybody, all of those parties joined us the last time. Context-wise and history-wise, this is at 404 Lowell Street. We had an 8-unit approval with Rocco Skipper back in 2017. There's a series of decisions that were approved and recorded. Since that time, property has changed hands. We came back to the board in 2019, and the board approved the current entity, the current applicant, as the new owner. Also since that time, and as I mentioned at the last hearing, Mr. Doherty's entity brought the project through the Wakefield Conservation Commission. So a lot of work was, and an order of conditions issued. I know the board has a copy. A lot of work was done there, obviously, with respect to engineering, water tables, and the like. The reason that we are here presently is one of those issues was discovered, which related to the water table, which the prior developer / applicant was not aware of. So that brought us to the last hearing where plans were presented. In general, I think, there were a couple of broad comments that the board had consensus on, not the least of which was the parapets. Some of the parapets were proposed to be removed, and there was discussion, and we agreed that they would come back. There was discussion relative to the landscaping and specifically the schedule, make sure that was updated. We also had some discussions with one of the abutters regarding maybe changing some trees along his property line to cherry or something like that, or Japanese maple rather, I'm sorry, which has been done, but I believe Shane will cover that. Two other kind of broad categories. One was engineering. Paul Finocchio had pointed out that the entranceway needed to be kind of reworked in terms of his plan, not in terms of the overall plan. And he needed to relocate oil water separator. Also, one thing that happened in the meantime is the traffic advisory committee picked up, I think they thought it was a new project actually, but nonetheless, Lieutenant Joe Anderson reached out and asked us just to make a brief presentation to them I've been out of state, so Shane Losey covered that on Friday. I think a couple things came out of that relative to the widening of the sidewalk and, you know, an exit sensor alarm, but I'll let Shane cover that. So that's kind of, I think, our broad charge of what we were to come back to the board on. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'll just defer now to Shane and perhaps Paul to cover those in a little bit more detail.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, members of the board, share my screen. You guys see that?
Yes.
All right. So again, just for context, this is the location of the building along Lowell Street. This garage here, which is current or has been demolished since these pictures were taken. So as a result of the traffic advisory board, we moved the street trees back onto the property in order to get the sidewalk a bit wider. So these trees are the same, but they moved back onto our property and we rearranged some of the planting to accommodate that. Also, as a result of the neighbor behind us, these trees back here, which were in the corners, moved into these locations in order to line up with some of the windows that we have. And they also requested that we change those trees from the dogwoods that we had there to Japanese maples, which are the same trees we're using for the street trees. And then this is the updated planting schedule with all the updated quantities of trees, shrubs, and the perennials. Just a close-up look of this front, the front of the site. These are the new tree locations. Sorry if you hear screaming in the background, my 2-year-old's yelling. So these trees moved onto the property again to make the sidewalk continuous through. And we have the 16-foot curb cut. This walkway just shifted a little bit to get around the tree. And then some of these changes have been clouded from the previous submittal. And just to go over the site changes from the previous submittal to this one. This is the original, the previous submittal. So the driveway is going away. That went to the basement parking. Now is converted to landscaping. This left side, I'll get that.
Shane, do you call out the type of paver being used somewhere?
Yes, which I can get to further on in the presentation. But
It is
yes, we
called
have,
out somewhere.
yeah, we have them called out.
Yeah.
Yep. We added a pedestrian warning system in conjunction with the transportation department or the transportation advisory committee. So this walkway used to continue all the way to the back. We eliminated it because we had a walkway up, an exit from the basement that came up and then continued through. And it was crushed stone, but we converted that to pavers. This was crushed stone and we converted it to pavers. There was an existing stairway here, which I can show you. That was eliminated to the basement. And again, this was crushed stone. It's now landscaping, and then we have the pavers up in the front. This is Paul's plan. I don't know if he wants to talk about it a little bit. He relocated his oil water separator. It was in the front yard. It's been relocated inside the building. This is the electrical conduit plan, just showing we're connecting to the transformer next door and eliminating an existing light pole that's on our property. This was just the previous garage that was being eliminated down in the basement. And then this is the updated first floor plan, which you can kind of maybe see a little better without the gradient on it. We have space for the electrical meters in this area. We have a utility space for sprinkler and water in the entry. Space for an elevator machine room here. And then we have different areas for rollout dumpsters and recycling throughout the building. So we have a couple main areas here, and then kind of some overflow area for dumpsters here. And again, just kind of comparing the originally approved plan with the ramp down to the basement, and this plan, which you see we added 4 parking spaces here and added a space in the rear to make up the difference. The layout plan of the unit apartments didn't change at all from the previous submittal. And then we reintroduced the parapets that were removed on the last meeting. So those have all been reintroduced. The updated front elevation, removing the garage door, and that's kind of the only change on the front elevation. And again, comparing it to the previous. The rear elevation. So again, we brought back the parapet that was removed from the last meeting. And then we've removed some of the garage venting on the rear as well, as we only have one floor of garage versus 2. So we don't need as much venting as we previously had. Again, on the side elevation, the only thing changing is the venting. And again, the venting being reduced on the left side elevation. And here are material sheets. So all the existing materials previously approved, nothing's changed. And then the exterior materials, here are the pavers. It's Unilock Dawn Mists. And then the building section showing the difference between the basement being removed and now being at grade for the parking. And that's it. Any questions?
My notes from last time said keep parapets, same materials, plantings. So you covered that, right? And that the plans match. I think there was some, but maybe that was the plans that changed.
Versus site.
Yeah, I think we had a previously approved plan, so I think there was just some confusion. We would just have it for a reference, but we just removed it so there's no confusion.
There was also some clouded areas basically to note changes. And when I compared them, they didn't exist between the two. They've since corrected that. So all the modified areas are now clouded to show where things have changed from the original approved set. So I believe that they've covered what we asked at this time.
I have just one question. On one of the side elevations, I think it's the left side. The
left side, sorry. Yep.
So with the removing of the clouded spot, the removing of the vents, why isn't it? I know you're not going to see a ton, but still, if we're going to do it, why not do it right? Why are we not seeing in that big white spot the siding cover all that, so it just looks like siding than the vent?
Yeah, we can reduce that. I think the thought was maintaining kind of some of this feel of the white panel going all the way across, but we can reduce that.
To me, it just seems like it's, oh, we were going to put something here and then didn't have the white spot where it is, but I know it's not a huge deal, but we're going to do it.
Yep, we can reduce that down.
And Michael, can you remind me exactly what you're looking for? Because
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
totally confused by all of this.
What we're proposing to do procedurally is the same thing we did the last time through, which is there were originally 9 decisions recorded, filed, 9 applications, 9 decisions recorded. But the last time we modified it, we did one modification of the permits by substituting in the current applicant's name, but also the revised plan. So what we're looking for is what we're requesting is a vote to allow major modifications as depicted on the current plans that are right.
And can somebody give me the current plans with the revision dates that we're actually using?
Yeah, Shane, can you do that?
1 second. Stop sharing. Let's, it should be the revision date of 2/17/2021.
For a site or for architectural?
For architectural, and then for site.
And the name of the firm on the architecturals?
June Company.
June?
Choo, CHOO.
So to be clear, Mike, I just pulled up the application. It's to modify 8 decisions, all dated June 12, 2017, as modified by a decision dated June 11, 2019.
Right.
I think you said 9, so.
Oh, apologies.
No worries. Just so Chip, we're modifying the ones from June 12, 2017, as previously modified on June 11, 2019, with the stated plans. Okay.
I'm still looking at site plan dates.
It is revised to 18/21 by PJF and Associates.
Okay, good, thank you.
One last question, Mike. I'm just going through the files here, just refresh my memory. Did you and the team go through the town engineer, civil engineer comments from February 5th? There were just a lot of comments, and I think you were going to respond to them, maybe give us an update, just to note that they were all addressed, or they're noted,
Yeah.
accordingly in some way. So
Sure. I'll defer to Paul. Paul Finocchio was working through it. A lot of these are things that are in process, such as cammering the lines, which we've agreed to do and whatnot. But Paul Finocchio, if you could just take a minute and kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, I don't have the list in front of me, but I've talked with Eric Sherman over at the engineering department. At the time the building was taken down, the water and sewer line were cut and capped. The sewer was cut and capped at the main. The water was cut at the gate. And when the construction starts on the site, we'll cut it off at the main. We relocated the proposed sewer line so there are not 2 lines coming out of the building, but just one. And that'll actually tap into the sewer line that's running in the sidewalk on the street. We are doing a soil test pits tomorrow at 10 o'clock with the engineering department to establish the water elevation table with the town wants to be on site with that. So those are basically the main part. So we really don't have to camera the line, but we will. Is the main out in front that comes from the condominium office condominium to our left that runs from their site to the manhole on the right side of our property. And we'll be running out the sewer line out into that main.
So do we also have a copy, Dave, of the traffic advisory latest comments? And for Mike, are they incorporated in the current set?
Their recommended changes are incorporated. I checked with Gail this afternoon to see if the TAC had submitted their any recommendations, and they had not. I'm not sure whether or not they're going to. They and I wasn't present at the Zoom meeting because I was out of state, but I did have a conversation with Lieutenant Anderson a little earlier in the week last week. And we talked a little bit about the project having been previously approved. So I think my understanding was it was more discussion on Friday. I'm not sure that you're going to get written recommendations at all, Jim.
Who attended that from your
I
group?
did.
Shane Losey.
I did.
And that's where the changes for the sidewalk out front came from. The pedestrian alarm came from the discussion with TAC. Those were their points.
Were those the only two?
There was update too. They wanted to see about maybe removing the garage doors. I suggested we could work something into the intercom system so that if any visitors came and needed to use the parking, we can tie it into the building call system.
Okay.
So I see, Mike, I see three conditions that need to go along with this. One is to meet all the DPW requirements. One is to meet all the recommendations from TAC, and one is to meet all the requirements from Concom. When we do these major modifications, are we allowed to put conditions on things?
Yep. Oh, sure. Yes.
Well, I mean, are we?
Are you allowed?
Yeah, are we allowed to condition this? Because we can't condition findings.
No, you can condition this. This is a major modification of the underlying decision. Just with regard to the TAC chip, we don't have anything in writing. We may not get it.
Well, but it was those three recommendations.
Oh yeah. So, but those have been incorporated into what you have in front of you.
Yeah, but if there's something else that's not being represented and they come back, I would expect you to do it.
And we would certainly do
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Or come back to us and say you can't.
Right.
Right.
So is this really a minor modification, or isn't this a
A
refile?
major modification.
It's a major modification. This was refiled as a full public hearing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, yeah, because there were,
The last one we did like this was June 11th, 2019.
We have a lot more dates than that.
Better check my dates on that.
but before we kind of went sideways with other comments, I was going to point out the DBW letter had a lot of comments and recommended conditions.
Yeah.
Some of those tend to be things that they would like to see that might be in plan sets, building sets that aren't necessarily things we would condition.
We think we've got a pretty good handle on it. Paul's working with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as long as I think we have a condition that you've satisfied all the, the requests to their satisfaction. Again, sometimes we've seen updated letters that your team's responded and they've acknowledged it or something, but we just don't have that in this case.
Right. Yeah, the only thing I would say is, they've got their own INI fee. Would ask that not be made a condition here, but other than that, I mean, we're working with them on everything on this, so wouldn't be a problem. Probably wind up with the INI fee anyway, but that's a separate issue.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, board members? Checking the punch list. Did we request or get a construction schedule?
I did submit one. I can put it up right
Okay.
here. It's pretty similar to what was submitted the last time. Would you like
It
to
was
see
in-
it? Or,
No, it was provided, right? I just make sure.
Yeah. Yep.
I have the new materials submitted this time, but just didn't have in front of me the stuff left from last time.
Okay.
So O&M, construction schedule, we're covered. Okay. All right. Nothing else, board members? We'll open it up to the public for perhaps one last time. We'll see. So I see one hand up so far, Robert McCauley. Sir, if you can just unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, hello, everyone. I'm Robert McCauley. I live at 7 Elk Spring Drive, which is just behind this property. I bought the house in June of last year and moved in. The father of Danielle McCauley and Leah McCauley of Wakefield, too.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, we've been in email contact about the plans and the two trees that were moved back. It looks like on the plans dated on 2/19, those are still listed as the Bradford pear trees. But it sounds like based on our discussion, those will be maples.
yeah, you might be looking at what was the former presentation, but there is, as a part of this, because I looked at that myself. I had the same question, and I double checked. But the Japanese maples are definitely shown where you want them.
Oh, great, thank you.
And then the planting schedule has eliminated the other, and it's 4 Japanese maples.
Mm-hmm.
2 up front, 2 up back, and they got moved in where you know.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, that should help block some of the those window banks for privacy both sides. I was looking too on the Japanese maples just to understand that kind of tree. Looks like there's all different kinds. There's like small ornamental shrubs, and then there's larger ones. So just want to request, you do the largest ones possible, so they might grow to that 25-30 foot height.
They're starting as a 3-inch caliper, which is a pretty good sized tree to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they should grow to be about 25 feet.
Okay. That sounds great. Yeah, nothing else for me.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Not see any hand waving or blue hands in the Zoom meeting room, so close it to public testimony this evening. So back to the board.
I move that we grant the major modifications as presented for 404 Lowell Street, modifying the June 12th, 2017 decision that was modified June 11th of 2019, and to today's date with the site plans dated 2/18/21 from PJF Associates and the architectural plans from Chu and Company dated 2/17/21 with the following conditions: meeting all the DPW requirements, meeting the request recommendations from TAC. There were 3, one, interlocking the door so that visitors can get into the underground garage as necessary, the wider entrance, and the meter, the signal on the outside, pedestrian signal. And meeting all Concom recommendations.
That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Second.
Thank you, Amy. Any discussion? Okay, there've been 2 hearings here. Everyone's attended. We'll go with the regular voting members, full members. So with that, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
I vote yes, so that is unanimous.
Great.
Okay,
Thank
you
you
have
very
your
much.
modification.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to seeing a building there soon.
Very soon.
So good luck, team. We appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. So that's it for continued hearings. Now we have new hearings. We continued the first one, the next one, 21-39. William Morris IV and Jennifer Morris at 141 Parker Road.
Chairman, I'm back. Attorney
back,
Brian
Brian.
McGrail representing the Morrises, William Morris IV and Jennifer Morris, who are, I believe, on here tonight under Bill Morris. They are the owners of property at 141 Parker Road in Wakefield, which is a subject property for the application tonight. Peter Sandus is with me again. Peter is an architect on this. As I mentioned, the Morrises own the property at 141 Parker Road in Wakefield, and they're seeking a special permit pursuant to Article 4, Section 190-22A, paren 1, paren F, requesting an accessory apartment. The intent is that Jennifer's parents, Linda and Frank Kane, would like to move in with them and live with them, and they want to create a accessory apartment on the lower level. This is a split family house at 141 Parker Road. And Frank is a veteran. Obviously it's a very close family. There's a few health issues, and it'll be very accommodating to them and to Jen and Bill for them to be able to live in the lower level of their home. Peter, do you have the plans? You want me to bring them up? I'll do it. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Peter, you want to kind of walk through here?
Lose them.
Pete, you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, guys. If we could, Brian, if we could jump down to the existing conditions first, I think it would be more helpful.
It's coming. There you go.
It's an existing split level home, 2 levels. For lower level, half above grade, labeled as existing lower level. About 50% of that is the garage, then a bathroom, an office, mechanical area, and a playroom. You can see the existing first floor, 3 bedrooms, bathroom, laundry room. Sorry, I'm losing my view here. Kitchen, obviously, dining. So what we're trying to do is within the existing. So Brian, if we go back up now to the first sheet, I'm sorry. So we're keeping all of the existing first floor as it exists, kitchen, bedrooms, etc., living, dining. In the lower level, we're repurposing the garage to become mechanical room, storage, bedroom and kitchen. And then on the left-hand side, there is already an existing living, mechanical room, and we're putting bedroom number 2 and a bathroom. So we're taking that lower level and repurposing it to the accessory apartment. Up on the left-hand side of the screen, we're showing the square footages. The lower level now being 726 square feet. The first floor plan being 1,363 square feet, a total of 2,089 square feet. 25% of that is 522 square feet. When we come back and we repurpose, the lower level for the principal dwelling is 0, upper level remains the same. The proposed apartment or accessory dwelling is 905 square feet, representing about 43 square feet of the existing square footage of the house. We're showing it in red here where we're doing the renovation, what new walls, closets, etc. in that area. Brian, if you go to the next slide. Front of the house existing. The only change in the front of the house is the window that's shown in red. I believe the size of it's changed to accommodate the kitchen counter. If you go to the next slide, Brian. It's the existing right elevation, and here the changes. We're taking out 1 garage door, putting in an entry door, small window in the mechanical room, and maintaining one of the garage doors as it now exists. That's the change to the principal dwelling. Next slide, Brian. Existing rear. Here we're adding 2 windows in the proposed new bedroom. One of them meeting egress requirements, the other for light. That's the only change in the rear elevation. Next slide, Brian. So now in these next few slides, we kind of jumped forward earlier, but these are showing the existing elevations, what's there now as opposed to what we're proposing. No change to the footprint of the building.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, no problem.
So I can go through, Mr. Chair, the requirements of the standards of this special permit.
Brian, before you start that, can you just, what rooms are included in that 905 square feet?
Okay, I'm going to defer back to Peter.
Yeah, I can answer that. So, Chip, we take out the storage room and we take the mechanical room. So it's both because this mechanical is part of the apartment. So it's this entryway, the kitchen, the master bedroom, the bathroom, this second bedroom, that the living area in the mechanical room. So the storage room and the 2 mechanical rooms are only 458 square feet. The storage room and 1 mechanical room. Oh, you have to include the other mechanical room? Yes, I have to include it. Okay. It's a little strange, but it's so the red helps, I think, a bit, just in terms of saying what's changing, but also the stairs come out, right? Because of the, they belong to the upstairs apartment once the door is included. Okay.
And Peter, can you explain the calculation of the total? You're saying currently there's 726 square feet of floor.
Yes.
But that'll increase to 905.
Because in the existing square footage, we have to remove the 2 garage bays.
Understood that point, but then how does the total stay the same if you're actually adding? And this may actually help you with the calculation.
How does the total stay the
So
same?
you say you keep in the calculation of the 43%.
Yes.
Still use the 2,089 square feet.
Yes.
But you're adding square footage. So how does it stay the same if you're taking, if you're adding livable square footage?
Yep.
If I guess the main residence is staying exactly the same.
Correct.
You're adding square footage livable residence to the bottom. How does the total stay the same? It should increase.
That's a good point.
1363 plus 905 should be a bigger number, Greg, right?
Yes.
Way easier way to put it, Dave.
Yes, because we're taking away the garages and adding square footage.
So, I mean, it may help you in the calculations anyways, but yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page here.
That is exactly what we're doing. We're taking square footage not included because it's garage space and making it living space.
So you're adding a little under 200 square feet.
Right.
Peter, with the
real issue when it comes to this, Greg, is you're only allowed a certain percentage.
Oh, understood, but the percentage is completely wrong the way it's calculated.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, would the garages not be technically habitable area?
They would not typically, no.
Okay.
Even though they are in this house, they're most likely conditioned at some level.
Yeah, that's why you did the calculation that way.
Right.
Well, no, because you're taking livable space. The garage is not there in the proposed conditions. So it still changes, Brian. It still should be, it's not 2,089 square feet space anymore.
I see, Craig.
You're right. You're adding it back or
adding more.
And I guess the question would be, are you allowed to do that? In converting to a, or, you know, I know we're not changing the footprint, but we are changing the, I guess, habitable space. You know, should we still be using the 2089 as the calculation anyways? Now, I guess that's more of a legal question than it is.
Well, what the bylaw states is that the apartment must be located in the principal dwelling. The garage is part of the principal dwelling. It might not be categorized as habitable space, but it is part of the principal dwelling. It's within the principal dwelling. Then what it says, Greg, it's interesting. It says on the size of the apartment, it says,
yeah,
but in no case shall the size of the accessory apartment exceed 25% of the habitable area of the dwelling. So it distinguishes in which it is located, unless the board allows that. So, you know, you have the discretion to allow that to be greater than 25%.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as warranted by the specific circumstances of the particular building.
That's right.
That's what I was kind of getting to this. I'd like to hear why. I don't think we've heard why yet. Maybe that's where you're going, Brian. I just wanted to understand the calculation first.
Yeah, I just thought you were saying that it might not be allowed at all because it was garage space.
No, I just wanted to understand that.
Yeah.
The numbers seemed completely off, so.
Is everybody in agreement that that number needs to change anyways, Pete, from where you have it?
So let me see if I understand. We're saying that the existing is correct because that's taking out the garage, but then when we do the proposed, I'm trying to jump my brain around it as well. We're adding that additional 200 plus square feet because we're taking the garage. So the principal dwelling size does not remain the same. It's bigger.
Yeah.
Right? It's big. The 2000.
Not the principal, the total.
The total.
Habitable area.
Total habitable area, not the principal.
Yeah, right.
By a little under 200 square feet.
Yeah.
2268. I was doing the math on the calculator. So that seems reasonable. The habitable area is increasing.
Yeah.
Within the principal.
We increases. Yes.
But as long as that the lower floor, that's when you did the calculation of that, you didn't include the garage.
That's right.
Yeah.
We took it out. Yeah.
So do you have your calculator still out, Dave? What is 905 to 2268 as a percentage?
40%. So it doesn't help it a ton. It changes.
Well, reduces it a little bit.
Yep, 3%.
3%. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's still over the 25, which we would have to find that the circumstances as the bylaw states. We think it's warranted given the circumstances of this dwelling in this situation. But we have that discretion, just so everyone knows. Yeah. Okay, Brian, do you want to just go through just because it speaks to lot area? It goes back to the beginning. If you just want to quickly summarize the criteria and where that we stand with this situation. Okay.
Yeah. So under the standards under the accessory apartments are that it's a specific purpose and the intent to allow these apartments to meet special housing needs of families, which we talked about. Can only be created within a single family dwelling, which are located on lots that meet the minimum lot area and width requirements of the zone. I can testify that I confirm that this does meet those requirements.
Yeah, 14,000 feet and 100 and something.
15,000 feet. And
Yep.
the frontage on the lot's like 148.
Right.
Where 100 is required.
Okay, so it meets that. Yep.
Owner occupancy required. The owners of one family upon the owners of the one family lot upon which the apartment is located have to occupy one of the dwelling units. So that is the case because Morris's Bill and Jen are going to live in one of the units, the top level. If there's a change in ownership or the last surviving parent does no longer occupies, then the permit becomes null and void. The special permit and the kitchen needs to be removed. So there has to be a restrictive covenant recorded, which they agree and we would do. The Basically, the special permit, as you know, is issued on a year-to-year basis. And the board usually waives the bond requirement to remove the kitchen for a letter once a year stating that they have the means to do that. And we would ask for that in this case. As we mentioned, an accessory apartment must be located in the principal dwelling. And the apartment size, the minimum floor area for the accessory apartment within the principal dwelling building shall be 300 square feet, but in no case shall it exceed 25% of the habitable area of the dwelling, which is located, unless in the opinion of the zoning board of appeals, a greater or lesser amount of floor area is warranted by the specific circumstances of the building, which we can talk about in a minute. The accessory apartment shall not involve an extension or enlargement, which, you know, the board has interpreted to be, you can't build an addition to do this unless it was for egress or access purposes, and no more than one accessory apartment for a total of 2 on the lot, and it's only approved by the Board of Appeals. So basically, our reasoning for the greater than 25% is that it makes sense from the perspective that this is a split level house. And, you know, we've already committed who's going to live in that accessory apartment. So it's not like we're saying we want to bring more people in. The folks that are going to be living there are Linda and Frank Kane. This really allows them to spread out. As I can testify that I'm getting close to 60, the longer you're married, the more need you have to spread out. And it's very convenient for people my age to have 2 bedrooms because sometimes people snore, sometimes there's a need to get away. So that's my personal opinion, that they do need room to spread out. And quite frankly, it makes sense. So I think it is warranted here by these specific circumstances of the particular building, because that's the standard in the bylaw in their particular circumstances also. So we will request that waiver. It is a waiver that the board has given on previous matters involving accessory apartments.
So, Brian, we're eliminating 2 parking spaces because we've eliminated the garage basically. But I noticed and I just pulled up YouTube or pulled up Google Earth, there is a parking area. This sort of swings under the house, but next to it, there's another parking area for cars. So it looks like there's 2 parking areas for cars, multiple cars.
Correct.
On the property. I assume it's, looking at the tree line, it looks like it's in their property, but we don't have any landscape plan for that. But by the visual appearance, it looks like in the end, there's still enough room, even though the elimination of the garage has happened, there's enough room for parking here.
Yeah, why don't we just ask it simply, how many parking spaces are in the driveway?
Bill or Jen, you want to just talk about that real quickly? How many cars you usually fit in your driveway?
Hi there. Yeah. So the that second parking area can fit 4 cars, and then the main driveway fits 2 cars.
That appears to be so.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I live around the corner. It's a big lot. That other asphalt area used to be a basketball court, I believe. It's pretty substantial. It's a large lot. On one side of the lot is Route 95. The back is a conservation area. They really only have one abutter. There's a split level house across the street that I've only been on the board since 2012, but there's been a ton of additions on that. That's not your standard split level across the street. This one's not even asking to expand. I don't think parking would ever be an issue on this site, given the basketball court asphalted area and the size of the garage. I mean, the size of the driveway there. And the lot is very long. I think Mr. McGrail described as 140 feet. It seems that when you walk by there, it's a long, big lot.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Yeah, just want to be clear. So anyone question, hey, we lost the garage, what happens with the cars? So it sounds like
Yep.
they're fine, and that's fine. That's good to hear. Okay. Any other comments, questions from board members? Okay, we did receive some correspondence. Just note those for the record. Brian, I don't know if you had already seen these from
I
Engineering
did. Gail
Division.
sent them. Thank you.
Yep, just a recommended condition about an I&I fee, but that's again typical, that can be addressed. Concom, it is in their jurisdiction. It lies within 100 feet of the bordering vegetated wetlands. However, the work is internal only for an accessory apartment, shouldn't result in any land alterations. Thus, no review is required by the commission. And from the fire department, and no objections to the project. So that's the correspondence we have from other town boards. Unless there's anything else, board members, we can open it up. Participants. Okay, so we'll open up to public testimony. If there's a member of the public who wishes to ask a question or make a comment, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting room, or wave your hand in your camera if you don't have the other capability. I'm just looking through the participant list and not seeing any hands being raised either way or waving, so we'll close it to public testimony. So
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the special permit for the accessory apartment at this location based on the plans presented to us tonight by Phoenix Architects, dated, help me with what the date is, guys.
1/13/20.
Dated 1/13/20. And that we waive the requirement that it only meet 25% of the habitable space, and that we allow it to be approximately 40% as presented this evening.
Second.
Thank you, Amy. Any discussion?
Excuse me, the condition would be that, and I don't have the wording in front of me, but whatever we do for the letter once a year and all that goes with it.
Yeah, in the restrictive covenant.
Still the family.
In the restrictive covenant.
The restrictive covenant.
Okay. All right, so as amended with that condition, can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Amy. Any discussion? All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes, that is unanimous. Okay,
Do you want Peter to make any change on that plan per Greg's comments, or just leave it alone? And maybe we just discuss it in the decision, or
He doesn't mean ignore me.
what's that?
no,
You don't mean ignore me, just.
No. Oh, no, I don't even ignore you. I mean, ignore the issue, Greg.
yeah, no, I would like to get an updated sheet so that the
I would
decision's
too.
gonna,
Yeah.
because the decision speaks to that percentage and it'll be different, so, yeah.
I think what Greg is saying, if I understand it, since it's the habitable area is changing, you have to include that in your calculation, which is going to reduce your percentage a little bit.
Yeah, it only helps your client anyways. But
I know
yeah.
that. I know that, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll update the plan, no problem, correct it, thank you.
And we can adjust the decision to note, because that'll have a later date than what we're seeing tonight based on the
Correct.
motion, but
Yes.
we'll adjust that. Okay. All right, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next new hearing, here we go. 21-40, 41 and 42, 62 Foundry LLC at 62 Foundry Street and 76 Foundry Street.
That's me again, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing 62 Foundry LLC, the owner of properties at 62 and 76 Foundry Street. With us tonight is Brian Melanson, who is the manager and principal of 62 Foundry LLC. I think the board is familiar with Mr. Melanson. He was involved with the ownership and permitting and construction of 69 Foundry Street, which is right across the street, which is almost complete. Our architect on this proposal is Chris Mulhern. Chris is from Harrison Mulhern Architects. And the board is, I think, familiar with Chris because Chris was the architect for the 175 North Avenue project where with the Maggiore family and where Tono Restaurant is located. Chris was the architect on that building. And also we have Mark Slager. Mark is a Wakefield resident, lives on Elm Street in Wakefield. He's a principal of Allen Engineering in Westford. And Mark is our site civil engineer on this project. Mark was also the site civil engineer at 69 Foundry Street when we permitted that project. So we're going to make, this is our first hearing. We'd like to make an initial presentation on this project for the board, Mr. Chair. I'm going to do a little bit of an introductory here, but it might be helpful, Chris, if you want to kind of bring up your PowerPoint, because I'm going to have you not go first, but I think what we'll do is we'll probably have just kind of maybe just the next sheet on the PowerPoint, the next page 2. Great. This just gives an idea of where the site is located. As you can see, it's pretty much almost across the street from 69 Foundry. It's right next to the parking garage for Harvard Mills, separated by Maple, and it's got the railroad tracks in North Avenue behind it. So I just kind of want to give you a little logistics. So 62 Foundry Street is in 76 Foundry Street are made up of 2 properties that currently house the old Crystal Lumber site on Foundry Street, and then the old Taylor building, which was really a warehouse building and storage building. And Chris will get into a little bit more detail on that as we go through the presentation. What we're proposing here is a mixed-use mid-rise apartment building on the property. The combined properties contain 45,996 square feet. If you do, since they are within the railroad district, the 2,500 feet of the railroad station, if you did a calculation on 1 per 750 square feet, 61 units would be allowed. We're requesting 58 units. The unit makeup will be 18 one-bedroom and 40 two-bedroom units, again, for a total of 58 units. Out of those 58 units, 10 of them will be affordable. So it's a pretty good number to get into our affordable housing mix, and I think would be a big benefit. As I've mentioned, not only is this a mid-rise apartment, but it's a mixed-use project. The board may recall we had a pre-application meeting with the board on this project a while ago before filing. The board has been, pretty vocal about the fact that as future projects come on Foundry Street, that you do want to see mixed use and just not residential. You actually mentioned that to Mr. Melanson when he permitted 69 Foundry, because that was really the first project that was developed. And I believe that the board at that time said, well, on this, we're going to, allow residential only to kind of get the area going. But as future projects come, we are going to want to see a mixed use. And to Brian's credit, he heard that and he's adhering to it. Part of our project will include 3,000 square foot for commercial. And the stated goal is to have some type of restaurant eatery use that will go into that place that we think would be a big enhancement to the neighborhood in the other housing that's taking place. This project, like some of the other projects, 69 Foundry, is really taking care of what I would categorize as a blighted area and a contaminated area. You'll see from some of the photos, growing up in Wakefield, living here all my life, you kind of get used to that corridor. You're driving down North Ave, going either way, and you glance over there and you just kind of, you know, oh, that's there. But if you really look over there and stand across at the middle school and kind of see what you look at, if somebody comes in from out of town and they look over here, it's a blighted area. And there's a lot of contamination in that area. As you're aware, when 69 Foundry was developed, there was a significant environmental remediation that had to take place, a lot of environmental testing, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that were spent, and made it not only better for the property, but better for the neighborhood in the area to get rid of that contamination. I spoke to Brian today. This property also has some environmental challenges that he will deal with and are going to have to be dealt with. I do want to state there is no request for a reduction in the affordable unit count. Brian is committed to the 10 units and meeting the 18% requirement. I think this is just another step for Foundry Street, the rehabilitation of that area, the reuse of that area, which time has passed by from a lot of the uses that are taking place there. And hopefully it continues. That was really the goal of our town planner, Paul Rivas, before he retired. That was one of his stated goals, and it seems to be coming to fruition. With that said, I would like to kind of go back to our team. I think it might be good to start before Chris goes with the PowerPoint to go to Mark Slager and maybe have Mark kind of take over the screen, and or I can help him, or whatever works best, to kind of go through the site, and then Chris can kind of go through the PowerPoint, more detail of the area and what the architectural layout will be.
Okay, we see your screen.
Yeah, good evening, Mark Slager from Allen Engineering. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Basically, what we have is a site that is essentially all impervious between the various buildings on the site. Whatever is left is basically all paved, with the exception of a small gravel area right in the back. And all of the runoff from all of the paved areas and roof areas go out into the existing drainage system on Foundry Street and Maple Street. So what we're going to propose to do to mitigate that is construct an infiltration system in the back. The infiltration system would collect most of the parking area and all of the roof area from the buildings. It would infiltrate into the ground, recharge the groundwater, and then trickle out whatever surplus runoff into the existing drainage system.
Mark, if I can just, sorry, interrupt you for a second. Does everyone see the picture cut off, like only half the site?
Yeah.
Just me. Oh, okay.
You need to slide it to the left.
Yeah, if you can just, I don't know how it's looking on your end, but we're only getting half the picture of the site.
Is that better?
Terrific.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So with the infiltration system, we're going to recharge the groundwater and let the excess runoff slowly filtrate into the existing drainage system. As a result of that, we have significant decreases in both the rate of runoff and the volume of runoff, which is going to help maintain a better situation for the drainage system in Foundry Street. In addition to that, there are some undersized pipes located within Maple Street. And we just enlarge that a little bit. We've got an existing catch basin here, another existing catch basin over here. We've got some smaller pipes, like 6-inch PVC pipes and an 8-inch PVC pipe. All of that is going to be replaced with new 12-inch reinforced concrete piping. So it'll improve the capacity of the existing system. And also we have the reduction in the rate of runoff and the volume of runoff. So it's going to be a much improved situation out there. In addition to the drainage improvements, we're going to neaten up the curb line along Maple Street, add some sidewalks. Similar to that, we're going to improve the curb line along Foundry Street and redo some sidewalks and add some seating area, which I'll let the architect go through with that. It's a fairly simple drainage runoff calculation. I'm sure the town engineer is going to review it and hopefully have some comments and some feedback if he has any issues. And with that, I think I can turn it back over to the architect and Brian, and let them take away with the most of the good part of the site.
Yeah, and I'm going to hand it over to Chris, and it's Chris, you got to stop sharing, Mark, on the screen if you could.
Yeah.
But I think, just like with 69 Foundry, is Mark talked about, with the drainage in Maple Street, is going to be at the cost of the owner of the property and not the town. There's going to be some significant infrastructure improvements. You look at all the infrastructure improvements that are taking place with Harvard Mills, with the water main in Foundry Street. You look at 69 Foundry Street, where they're taking all the electrical poles down and everything is going subsurface. That's all being upgraded, not at no expense to Wakefield. And again, all the contamination of that area, that historical industrial area, is being cleaned up. So with that said, Chris, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, thanks, Brian. My name is Chris Mulhern. I'm principal of Harrison Mulhern Architects. We are the designers for this project. Also, as Brian mentioned, for 175 North Avenue, we're ultimately responsible for that elevator vent. We got blindsided by it. But with your permission, I'd like to walk you through this design and answer any questions that might come up. So as Brian mentioned, this is the locus plan. The site is bounded by Foundry Streets and Maple Streets. Harvard Mills Garage is immediately neighbor to the north across Maple. The commuter tracks are immediately east of the parcel, with North Avenue and Walton Field beyond. Surface parking for Harvard Mills project is located opposite the project to the west, and also the development called the Foundry at Wakefield lies west and south. 128 Plumbing is the neighbor adjacent directly to the south of the project. This is the existing conditions plan. As Mark mentioned, the site is essentially impervious right now. It's just under 1 acre in size. It's mostly level with street frontage on both Foundry and Maple. There's a frame house down here in the corner, and then 3 industrial buildings occupying the balance of the street frontage. The easterly portion up here is all paved parking lot, and it's currently in use as a construction yard for the adjacent projects. This is the view looking north on Foundry Street. The big white warehouse in the center of the picture and the 2 smaller buildings on either side mark the boundaries of this property. The red brick structure in the background is the Harvard Mills garage, and Harvard Mills building is to the left without its new addition on top. This is the view looking west from North Avenue across the tracks, with the Harvard Mills garage on the right and the big warehouse in the center. This view is looking east from Maple Street. It shows the frame house hidden behind the tree, as well as the big white warehouse. This rendering from a similar viewpoint shows the building we hope to build. You've seen this before. We were before this board last February, just before COVID, to give you a preview. This is a mixed-use structure. It's a podium-type design, totaling just over 93,000 square feet. There's a mixed-use tenant space on the ground floor at the corner, which we hope will become a restaurant with outdoor dining. The balance of the ground level is used for the residential entry, amenities for the building, mechanical spaces, and a total of 92 parking spaces, 44 in a garage and 48 on grade. The upper 4 levels house 18 one-bedroom and 40 two-bedroom units for a total of 58 apartments. Here's the ground floor plan with Foundry Street at the bottom and the MBTA right-of-way at the top of the sheet. The mixed-use area here in blue occupies the corner of Foundry and Maple with its own entrance at the corner. We're planning on outdoor seating along Foundry Street in this area with an enclosed border around it. The residential front door
is in the middle of the parcel, leading directly into the lobby here and the elevator core. Our detailed design will feature a touchless entry system for the residents from both the street and the garage. A package room, site office, a small gymnasium, and a group of utility spaces complete this level. The garage is divided into 3 separate bays, each with its own garage door. And the site is designed with wide drive aisles to allow two-way traffic for the residents. The balance of the street frontage not occupied by the entrances and the outdoor dining will be heavily planted. A dense mix of deciduous and evergreen trees and shrubs will be used to add color and texture to the site. Similarly, the corners and edges of the parking areas will be planted, and we're proposing a 6-foot stockade fence to replace the chain link along the MBTA right-of-way. Our landscape architect can explain the details of this design should the board require it. We're proposing new lighting for both street frontages and in the parking area. These LED fixtures will be mounted on 14-foot poles and produce a lighting pattern shown on this plan. The fixtures will be aimed and shielded to minimize light spillage and to protect new residential units, especially from light leakage. This cross section through the building, cutting through the lobby and looking to the north, you can see the building is narrower on the upper floors than on the ground level, creating a courtyard facing east. Here's the second floor plan showing the U-shaped building wrapping around a raised courtyard above the grade level garage. This is the same partie that we used on the 175 North Avenue building. The 10 two-bedroom units on this level are shaded in yellow with the 6 one-bedrooms colored in green. Here's a plan for the center courtyard, accessed from the second floor elevator lobby shown here. This is a green roof design with a mixture of paving materials and planting types. Each of the 4 residential units adjacent to this courtyard will have a paved outdoor area protected by a raised planted buffer. The center space here will be shared by all the residents with grills, soft seating around a fireplace, table areas, and hammocks. The private spaces will be shielded by tall privacy fencing, while the center area will have an open railing design shown here at the top, looking east over Walton Field. The third and fourth floor plans look like this. Each of these levels have the 10 two-bedroom units and 6 one-bedroom units. 11 of the 16 units have private balconies. This cross-section looking west shows the relationship between the units, the garage, and the courtyard. The top floor is set back with a reduced unit count. Here's the 5th floor plan showing 10 two-bedroom units, each with a private outdoor area. In addition, there are 2 modest shared deck areas for use by residents of other floors. This view of the east side shows the massing of the building, the courtyard area raised above the garage, and then the garage bay doors at grade. Turning now to the materials proposed for the exterior, we'll start with the corner element, the tallest feature of the building, and focus on the area outlined in red. So this element will be capped by a metallic cornice shaped from aluminum composite material known in the industry as ACM. This is a sandwich panel that's relatively easy to shape into complex forms. We plan to shape the cornice and then use uplighting to highlight the overhang at the top. The main body of this tower has brick veneer with a precast concrete base. The infill panels are aluminum Aluminum curtain wall system is used with insulated spandrel panels between the floors. The ACM appears again as infill between the curtain wall elements. We're proposing a projected sign on each face to mark the restaurant location. This elevation drawing shows the materials and their relationships. This is the Maple Street side, the north side of that tower element. Downlights will be used to highlight the entrance. It's a projected canopy you can see here, and the downlights will highlight the storefront below. Now we'll look at the main body of the building, focusing again on the area outlined in red. So the brick veneer and precast at the base carries along the entire ground floor of the building with special operable panels, operable door panels at the outdoor dining area marked by the umbrellas in this rendering. The residential floors will be clad with a combination of fiber cement panels in a large format, shown here in yellow, and clapboard type fiber cement siding with a 4-inch exposure, shown in white, giving a subtle contrast between the various elements. Operable aluminum windows with insulating glass will be used throughout. The balconies will have composite decking, painted metal railings, and painted PVC trim. Top floor units will have painted PVC pergolas as well. You can see those at the top of the sheet. Here's an elevation view, partial elevation, showing the wide format panels, the 4-inch exposure clapboards, the brick base, and the railing system and pergolas. Turning now to the entry portion of the building, we'll focus on, again, on the area outlined in red. So 2 brick veneer towers flank the main entrance, articulated with aluminum curtain wall and spandrel panels matching the corner element at Maple and Foundry Streets. A wide curving ACM cornice marks the entry and ties the brick elements together. Fiber cement panels and aluminum windows matching the main body of the building are used as infill, flowing down to a projected aluminum canopy at the entrance. A residential address sign will be located at the face edge of the canopy. This partial elevation shows the relationship between the elements and the location of the address sign. Lighting fixtures on the brick portions will wash the walls and highlight this entrance. Once again, downlights in the canopy will illuminate the sidewalk and the entry doors. Going around to the courtyard side, we look again at the area highlighted here in red. The center element, housing the elevator core and the residential floor lobbies, is a reprise of the front entry material. Brick veneer with aluminum curtain wall, aluminum spandrels, and ACM infill flow up to a curving ACM cornice. The bays at the north and south ends of the courtyard are also clad in the ACM panel material with operable aluminum windows. The brick veneer base with precast concrete accents continues around the ground level on this facade. Here's the partial elevation showing the relationships and the center lobby element. Finally, look to the secondary corner base, focusing on the area highlighted in this sketch in red. Oh, at the secondary corners, the cement panel system from the main body of the building carries over the top of the shorter corner elements. The corners themselves are clad in fiber cement panel system, textured and detailed to look like wood. The curtain wall system and spandrel panels from the other highlight areas are reprised here with the concrete frame of the podium peeking out at grade. So this elevation again shows the relationship of the corner elements to one another. This is for the 3 corners away from Maple and Foundry. We believe that these plan designs, the overall composition, the arrangement, and this arrangement of materials will result in a terrific mixed-use building. We think this project will be a visual and economic success and have a positive impact on this rapidly changing area of Wakefield. It will be one more step in the transformation of this area into a vibrant, transit-oriented residential neighborhood. Thank you for your attention. I'll answer any questions I can.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the presentation. Any comments or questions, board members?
Yeah, Chris, you've shown us the sort of the front view of this, but what's the back view? Because this building's really two-sided. Since there's no abutting buildings and you're looking right past to the school basically and North Avenue. So I hope the appearance of the front basically is maintained in the rear as well. So if you could bring that up.
So this slide here is this is the east face of the building facing the tracks. So it's basically taken from across the tracks. This is basically what it would look like if you were standing on North Avenue and looking to the northwest. So the property line is in here somewhere. And then we have a single row of parking, a two-way traffic drive aisle, and then the building. So these three doors are the garage doors, and then the courtyard, this raised platform up here is the courtyard space facing east towards Walton Field.
Chris, didn't you say there was going to be a fence along this border?
Yes, the fence is omitted so we could see what was going on ground here, but we do plan to put a 6-foot fence on the right of way, along the right of way. There's a chain link fence there now. And we're hoping that we can convince the MBTA to go for an upgrade to a wood stockade fence there. Does that answer your question, Jim, as to the?
Yes, thank you.
Chris, I appreciate the work that you've put into this. It's from coming out of the gate to looking at something like this. It's not something that we typically see right away. I think it shows that you put a lot of work into this, and I think it's going to make our process a little smoother going forward.
Thank you for saying so. We're excited about this building. It's been a long time coming. We've been, 2 or 3 years in the design process. We took a year off to let COVID happen, but we're happy to be before this board, and we're looking forward to a constructive process with you all.
Chris, this may be something to respond to later, but a restaurant and the operations of a restaurant with deliveries, grease traps, grease containers out back, trash, I want to know how that's all gonna work, and don't need to know it tonight, just the operations of it all.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and we don't know all the answers yet, but we believe that with this service corridor that we have shown here, we can effect an access to a rear entry to this mixed use area. We're positing that this dead end section of Maple Street will be okay for off-hour deliveries, truck deliveries for the restaurant. This, I'm sure you all know this, but basically this block of Maple Street dead ends at the tracks. It has a driveway for the Harvard Mills garage in the middle of the block on the left here, and our driveway at the back corner. That's it for this block. There's nothing else happening here, and there's no through traffic at all. So we feel pretty confident that we can use pieces of this for morning deliveries to work this restaurant and use this back access to all of the guts of the restaurant are going to have to be contained within the footprint of this mixed use area. We don't have any extra space. We don't have any space to dedicate to outside storage.
Yeah, so the key to that is operationally dumpster, trash, vegetable dump, vegetable oil dump, the restaurant trash. And by the way, I love the idea of a restaurant. I'm not questioning that. I think it's just, we really need to understand the operations of it and how it's going to work.
I think you raise a great question, and we just finished a restaurant that opened in the fall in Beverly, which is in a shopping mall. It's in a strip mall, and it had a similar suite of questions around how how the grease was going to get dealt with, how the rubbish was going to get dealt with. So we'd be happy to address that.
It can be solved.
Yeah.
And was there any thought to doing more mixed use, like a small cleaner, or, you've now got 3 or 4 different residential properties within a block of each other. So you got a lot of people.
Yes.
Was there any discussion about doing more area?
We talked about that, but Brian and I discussed it with Akhtar, who's one of the chief designers in our office, and it came down to a couple of trade-offs. There's a trade-off around parking. We could change out parking spaces for more retail frontage along Foundry Street. We could change out the little residential gym, which is about 750 or 707 square feet, and make that into a retail store. But that takes away the amenity from the residential use. So at the end of the day, we didn't feel like we wanted to lose any parking or give up what little we have in the way of amenity space to get more retail. We could revisit that. I'm not locked in one way or the other.
I think, Chip, that's a good point, but part of Paul Revis's design of this area in kind of is to, with the transit-oriented development, is that it's going to support, to get these people that are going to be living here out to the other businesses in town. So they need their own things, like a restaurant is great. They want to go out to eat and don't want to go far. But, there's to walk, to go to the businesses on North Ave and to walk down Albion Street downtown to actually help our businesses by bringing people that can walk versus, I think it's a balance. So too much in here, you just don't want to isolate them. They feel no need to leave the area, if you will. Just a thought.
Yeah,
but that's true, but you also want, street activity, people coming and going and that sort of thing. So having a restaurant basically, or some other street activity helps the security of the area basically. Otherwise people hop in their car and drive away somewhere. So, there is a balance there.
The balance.
Yeah. So
Yes.
Chris, I have one other comment, and that is that the top level cornices basically, which are the smaller cornices, which just have a band of gravel stop or some other sort of trim. When we did the building across the way on North Avenue, I thought that was a good solution at the time, but I really think those cornices have to be built up and a little bit bulkier, a little bit more noticeable. They die too quickly, basically. And I'm not.
You're talking about these, Jim? These ones here?
The ones on the 5th floor, the top of the 5th floor, the top roof.
Way up here.
Right there, yeah.
Mhm.
Those sort of things really need to have a little more guts to them, basically, than they are right now.
Understood.
Cutting them off just seems like it's an extreme, basically, because you've gone from one extreme to the other without the sort of mitigation. I don't mind the lower levels. It's just how it terminates against the sky, so to speak.
I hear you, and I understand exactly what you're saying, and we certainly can address that.
Yeah, okay.
Happy to do it, actually.
Thanks.
So I was actually going to comment about that same thing, Jim, in that the middle area, though, almost in the opposite respect, as if we're now going to be having, and I guess even more so in the future, kind of just tall buildings all down that street. Do we really want just to continue to have large overhangs and that, just casting even more shadows in the buildings? It just seems like an unneeded feature in my non-architect mind to be blocking even more light coming in when, the future we think is going to be, taller buildings coming all the way down that street.
Are you talking about this?
Yeah, the large corners there.
Yeah.
Well, that face basically is looking west, is what it is. So.
No, either way, it's still
depending on the season. I mean, if it's summer, you do want some of that shadow basically, because otherwise that heat gain gets into those upper units. On the other hand, when the sun is lower, basically it's going to allow that heat gain to penetrate. So, there's a plus to it as well.
Yeah, well, I was thinking too more of just those few units that benefit from it. the whole area being, just now dark and shadowed over. And then my only other comment was going to be this left corner right here, the Maple and Foundry, seems very glassy, almost very different than the rest of the building and the rest of the area. I like where the other corners are going, but this just seems to be all of a sudden a very different tune in the building and from the area. It seems more like almost like a seaport, type of architect in here.
Yeah, but it's also sort of an
Yeah, Jim, I'd like to hear from the architect. I want to hear them explain why they think it's not another board member, explain why they are going in the right direction.
Okay, I'll stop supporting the architect.
Wait. Well, to answer your question, Greg, we were trying to bring this building into a little bit more of a modern vernacular. We're trying to bring to make a join between the more or less plain residential building and a more modern look. So you're right. It's taking some cues from buildings in the seaport. It's taking some cues from buildings in bigger cities. But the notion is that the bricks around the curtain wall system and the ACM panels that start here get repeated down here at the front entrance, and they morph into the cornice up top, and then they get repeated around the back. When we get to, let me find it here. When we get to this point, we see the brick elements, the ACM elements, and the curtain wall elements working together. So we're trying to bring some elements that are not purely residential. They're not exactly like what we've done elsewhere in Wakefield and Winchester and Lexington on multi-unit buildings. We're trying to push the design a little bit in a different direction. So that's where it's coming from.
And can you clarify what's behind the glass on those front towers? I'm sorry if I missed it in the floor plan. Are those residences or like open?
Residential units, yeah. It's just a different window system in residential units.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like hallways or elevator or area, lobby areas. Yeah.
In this view here, these windows in the center here are the residential lobby. So that's the elevator lobby. If we go back to the plan here, you can see that there's a pair of elevators and a staircase, and then there's this lobby space on each floor. So those windows in the curtain wall are illuminating this lobby space, a public space on each level. Okay. Elsewhere on this corner tower on Maple and Foundry, those windows are into this residential unit. So it's bedrooms and living space.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Chris, Mike Feely. I want to praise you for not giving short shrift to mixed use. This street in this area is really, well, a lot of the things that are going up now don't have any of that. It needs a pedestrian ground level presence and reasons to walk down there, quite frankly. But one quick question, and maybe I missed it. If I'm a restaurant, I don't know what size it would be in there, but where would you park? How would that work?
So we have a few extra spaces in our count after we get through with 1.5 per residential unit. But there's also street parking on Maple, street parking on Foundry. So I think that's where the bulk of the restaurant parking is going to happen. It's notionally there'll be some spaces, and I honestly, my feeling is that, and I heard some of the earlier testimony before this board earlier tonight. My feeling is that particularly for 1-bedroom units, we're not going to need 1.5 spaces per unit. We're going to be more like 1 or 1.25 overall. 2-bedroom units, yes, I think that, just from a marketing point of view, you need two spaces to sell with a 2-bedroom unit. But I believe, though, especially at this location, that there may be a surplus of parking spaces on the site, and so those would be available as guest parking for restaurant users or anyone else.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, this being an introductory, we're getting into some great questions about the architecture and whatnot, but we have a lot more stuff to cover tonight. I might suggest that we figure out a game plan and move forward.
Happy to do that.
Yeah,
Yep.
actually, if I could just give one question that if they could bring back next time, it'd be good to start to understand the heights of the buildings along this way. Because I was, in my own architectural mind, was thinking what Greg was thinking, and to see some shadow studies, because eventually we want this to be a good pedestrian corridor too, because we're going to expect people to walk to the train and to walk around a little bit, to understand that we're not casting Foundry Street into shadows forever, or to try to limit that a little bit. And then the other dimension that would be helpful to me was the rendering, and then the site plan looked different, just the space between this building and the 128 plumbing building next door. That height and the just the linear distance. And Jim touched on a little bit, a lot of the people in the town are going to experience this building from Walton Field. If you have kids or they go to school, it'd be great to see the building and what you would experience from Walton Field or from the middle school. Thank you.
I think we can easily do that. We just, what we'll do is to superimpose the building into photographs taken from Walton Field, so you get a sense of the scale of it from that perspective.
Okay. Yeah, so to your point, Chip, I was just giving everybody an opportunity, at least on the board, to ask their initial questions, get things out there. Didn't want to go too deep and don't plan to go too deep because we're going to be at this for a few meetings. We know that. But anyone else on the board at this time?
I think to the last comment about shadows and 69 is right across the way. And when the sun is setting in the west or coming down on the west, basically, it's going to throw shadows onto this building. And right now, what's happening on Foundry is it doesn't reflect any of that. So much to Greg's comment, basically about shadow lines from corners, is there's a bigger shadow across the street.
Yeah. So getting that.
Well,
go ahead.
We have the geometry of that building, so we can actually model that up and cast a shadow from it.
Okay, I think if that's something that can be done before the next or for the next meeting, I think that'll be helpful for folks just to get their head around the overall, the massing here and how it sort of fits in.
Yes.
With some of those aspects. Okay, thank you. Anyone else at this time? Okay, Brian, I assume that was the bulk of the initial presentation, right? We've gone through what you had planned.
That was it.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Fair enough. I just want to make sure before we move forward. We did receive initial correspondence. I assume you've seen it or you will.
Yeah, I have seen some of it. Gail, thank you, forwarding it when she gets it, but I did not, some of the stuff that came to Gail late today, I didn't have a chance to to go through.
Yeah, I mean, Concom, it's not in their jurisdiction. Fire department, a couple of typical comments about sprinkler systems and such. But I think the DPW one was more involved. It's worth going through that and just making sure if there's any adjustments that need to be made to the plans and site, et cetera, right? Okay, so with that, we will open it up to public testimony, mindful of the fact that this is an initial presentation, just initial comments. We're going to go into further details on this architecture and design and massing, parking, lighting, all of it as we usually do, traffic. Once all that information is readily available, we'll go through it. But at this time, if anyone has an initial comment or question, we'll entertain that at this time. Please raise your hand. We'll ask you to state your name and address for the record. Not seeing any hands raised. One last quick look at the videos. Okay, seeing no hands, we'll close with the public testimony for the evening. So I assume March 10th we'll come back around on some of the updates that you heard tonight. And again, I assume team continue to focus on the aspects that we usually start with and just the building itself and the style, the design, the mass, and those sort of aspects, and maybe site civil if we can get there.
Yep.
Just to sound reasonable, board members.
It does. Chris, you think you could be ready for some of that stuff in a couple of weeks? You're on mute, Chris.
me just recap what I wrote down here. We're going to take a look at the logistics for the restaurant use. We're going to look at the 5th floor cornice. We're going to look at the heights and shadows in the context of Foundry Street. And we're going to develop a view from across North Avenue from Walton Field to show this in the context of the existing buildings. By March 10th, yes, I think we can manage by then.
Mr. Chairman, if we could, also, one of the things I was thinking about was just how does this lighting, trees, all the connectivity between 69 Foundry, Harvard Mills, are we talking about all the same type of lights? What's happening now as we start developing this corridor, making sure those are all coordinated, or at least thought about?
That's a good point. We'll take a look at the 69 drawings.
I think there is a common element between all these projects. It might be Mr. McGrail.
Yeah, I have all the plans, Chris. I can share them, make it easy for you.
So we don't have, I don't, in my office, have the details on Harvard Mills project, but we certainly, we're happy to look at all of these in the context. I think it's a great idea.
You'll have it in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, we spent a bit of time on that whole streetscape and sidewalks and lighting. So
I just want to make sure we're not ignoring it.
Yep. Good point.
Good point.
Okay. Anything else for next time? I mean, that again, we're going to have a full agenda as usual, but it does sound like a good starting point. We'll go from there. Board members?
Yes.
Yes. Nodding of heads. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. With that,
I move that we continue this to March 10th.
Second.
thank you. Any comments? Any discussion? All right, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, unanimous. We thank you for the initial presentation. We'll see you on March 10th.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, that completes the new hearings for the evening. We had a few other matters, one of which at 291 Salem Street. I understand we won't be hearing that tonight. Is that true, Brian?
That's true.
Okay, but we do have two others, starting with 69 Foundry Street, case 17-39, 40, and 41, Melanson Development Group, to discuss occupancy and surety.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Brian McGrail here with Tim Sullivan, who was the project manager, construction manager, supervisor, I should say, at 69 Foundry. We mentioned, we met with you at your last meeting and discussed that 69 Foundry is going to be looking for some certificate of occupancies in a temporary certificate of occupancy for some of the common areas. We had an opportunity a few weeks ago to walk the site with the board representatives, Amy Wall and Jim McBain, to do a tour of the building with the building inspector, Ben DeCristofaro, and with the Wakefield Fire Department, with our stated goal to kind of take a look at where the building stands from a finishing standpoint, including some of the offsite work that needs to be completed, some of the building elements that need to be completed in landscaping, and then also to take a look at the life safety measures that exist in the building now. Seaver Construction has a number of the units under agreement ready to sell, with closings approaching rather quickly. And the way that they would like to go about this, and we discussed it with the building inspector, Ben DeCristofaro, is to get temporary certificate of occupancies for most of the common areas, including the parking garage, and then individual certificates of occupancy as closings occur and as they move forward. The building inspector does not have a problem with that concept. He has stated he is not at this point fully satisfied with all of the building code issues that he needs addressed and answered before he would go that route. But in discussions with him today, he said that that's really a separate issue from your board as far as making sure that you have surety to ensure completion of the project to your standards. That being landscaping and some of the exterior elements, and also some of the offsite work that was conditioned as part of the decision. We also have the requirement, as you know, where there's affordable units, that your decision requires that percentage-wise, that the affordable unit occupancy permits need to keep up in 25% lump sums with the full market rate units, because you don't want to get to the end of the project and have no affordable units completed and everything else sold, with little incentive for the developer to finish those. So we've accounted for that, and that will be included in the schedule, and we talked to Ben about that. So what we've done, we submitted to you some detail as far as what needs to be completed at the site, and Tim can address that. We believe that it would be appropriate that rather than having a cash surety, which can be, somewhat complex to get that orchestrated and put the funds somewhere, what we're proposing is a surety would be units that we would hold back 5 units from occupancy permits that would be surety for any work that had to be completed. And if the board's amenable to that, I would work that out with town council, Tom Mullen. I've done that before with him to make sure that the town and your board is protected. So with that said, it's probably appropriate. I'm bringing this up now. Okay. So this is kind of the items that need to be completed on the site. And, Jim and Amy were out there, so they've seen a lot of these items. And also what we've done is we've provided estimated completion dates. So that, these aren't going to be put off. And, landscaping will be done by May, which I think is pretty reasonable, by the end of May. So that is the goal. I don't know, Tim Sullivan, do you have anything to add to this for the board?
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, members. I think the attachment is somewhat self-explanatory. We tried to list the items in the order in which we expect them to be completed, and some of the smaller items, upcoming first. You'll note that the largest single item is the landscape and hardscape package worth $260,000. That's the full scope of our contract with our landscape subcontractor. Due to winter weather, we didn't have a chance to get any of that started. I met with the landscaper today. He's going to start a week from Monday on site, which would be the 12th of March. And we've got 2 components to the landscape and hardscape package, one being up in the courtyard in the middle of the U shape of the building on the 2nd floor. And then the rest of it around the perimeter of the building and around the perimeter of the parking lot, with about 2/3 of the value being up in the courtyard and maybe 1/3 down at grade. And, the site is now just winding down in terms of its activity. All the utilities are in the ground. The loam has been rough spread around the site. And so once we can get the snow under control, the landscaper would be in to begin his work. 2 other large pieces of the site items to be complete are top coating the paving. Right now, we've got the binder coat down, all the drainage is operational, all the curbing is in. So it's really just a matter of, cleaning up things when the time is right to the top coat of paving and the striping of the parking spaces. And then the other $40,000 piece of work is a Lake Street storm drain replacement, which is really more in the purview of the engineering department, where we ran out of time before the fall moratorium to get some of the remaining work on Lake Street complete to replace a drain. The drain is actively working right now, but we had agreed to replace an old deteriorating drain, and we will go out and do that in the spring. And then around the building itself, again, I put things in, kind of a chronological order that they'll be completed. The largest item, which was masonry joint sealants and roof cornice flashing. These are related to the thermal envelope of the building. I met with the masonry joint sealant contractor today. He's expecting to beat this March 30 schedule by at least 2 weeks. He thinks if the weather holds, he'll be done on or before the 15th of the month, which is before occupancy, which is just kind of important. We sit here on, this was done on the 19th, which was last Friday, so things are getting ticked off the list as we go. And we're looking for C of Os to begin as early as the end of next week. But then the occupancy of the units doesn't take place until the end of March. The first closing is on March 23rd. That's what's scheduled for. So, even in this interim period, we're knocking these things off the list before anybody is moving in. That's it.
Yep. Tim, did you have anything on this plan that was that you wanted?
No, that was just a graphic to help. I mean, things like the vinyl fencing across the back. We've got the western part of the vinyl fencing still needs to be put up, and the sidewalk needs to be completed along Foundry Street. We've completed the sidewalk at the entryway so that access in and out of the building is clear, but the connecting piece along the middle of Foundry Street we haven't gotten to yet.
Can you go back to the next one? We're going to start showing dates.
Yes.
The dates sound different than what I just heard you say. The first closing is until 3/21.
3/23 is the first closing. So
why are you looking for 52 occupancy permits prior to that?
Because the banks, Chip, they need the COs before they'll start getting to the final point of closing.
They need COs 14 days in advance of any closing. And so we've got closings lined up, 1 and 2 closings a day for the first month after 3/23. So this is kind of unbreaking the logjam of sold units that have been waiting for their closings and closings that have been extended per their P&S, contracts. And so,
are you sold out at this point?
No, I think there's part of the letter. And if you go back to the letter, Brian, on page 2, we've got 83 units. 45 of them have purchase and sale agreements, and 38 units are for sale. Of the P&S units, 6 of them are for affordable units. But what
you've already held that lottery, Brian?
Oh yeah,
the lottery was held about 3 or 4 months ago.
Very successful.
I think we have the 6 sales, and there's 1 or 2 others that are not committed purchase and sales, but they're under review with the buyers at the moment. And what we've decided to do, the original idea was that we would allow the buyers to come in and then make their own unit selections for flooring and cabinetry and countertops and tile in the bathrooms and that type of finish selection process. But with the unsold units, Scott Seaver, the lead developer, he decided 3 months ago to put 20 additional units, just finish them off as spec units. And tomorrow we're issuing the last 16 units in the building, which are now basically core shell type, boxes for the units. And we're issuing all the finish schedules for the last 16 units tomorrow. And so we go from tomorrow to the end of May in implementing the finishes on those last 16 units. And, we've got like 30 other units that are in various stages of completion right now.
Okay, so Brian, this is Dave. My initial comments when I saw this was, wow, this is a big list. And 2, as you, I'm sure, are well aware, this board can't make any recommendations about COs, right?
That's right.
all we can do is recommend to the building inspector whether a project has completed or met the conditions of our decisions, right? And our plan, the plans we approved. That's all we can say. You've met the conditions or you haven't with some stipulation or surety or something. And then the building inspector, it's at their discretion. There might be other inspections that need to happen. There might be other things that need to happen before he's willing to grant any COs, right? So anything that comes from this board is just whether the applicant, whether the project has met the conditions of this board's purview. And if they haven't, we need to agree that those items, again, it's good to see them spec'd out like this with timeframes and values. And whether, this board is comfortable with units being held versus cash or some sort of, escrow or something. But again, the outcome potentially is simply a letter stating that, again, up to the board, the building inspector to take that with anything else that he's tracking, whether or not to grant COs. So I just hope everyone understands that, right?
Understood.
Yeah, it's very clear, Mr. Chair. Yep.
Okay.
Understood. Yeah, you're basically releasing the project to him with conditions and he's already said that. He said the same thing you did. He said, the first step you need is for the board to say that, that I can move forward, but I'm not going to move forward until I'm satisfied with my list of building code issues.
Right.
Outside of the Board of Appeals.
Right.
But Dave, you're saying that letter that we send isn't necessarily enforceable. Even if he says, okay, I'm good with my code issues, as Brian said, he can issue the COs no matter what our letter says.
No.
Well, no, he probably wouldn't, because if we're not
Probably.
satisfied, we would, well, I can't speak for Ben, he's not here. But I would suspect, and Gail is, maybe she can represent what she thinks he would do, but she works with him every day. But I don't think he would move forward if this board was saying, we don't think they're ready, this list is too big, we need to see more completion. So come back to us in whatever.
So I guess my real question though isn't, it's more from what you said. It's not what would Ben do. It's what is it anybody in that situation legally can do. If we can't say anything about COs, then it's not a legally enforceable letter. Then
you're going to enter, if you approve this, it's not, it's really going to be beyond a letter. It's going to be a letter, but my client is going to enter into a surety agreement with your board. And the surety is going
And the town.
And the town, and the collateral is going to be units. So we're committing that we will not, we're committing, my client will be committing that they're not going to apply for COs for those units or obtain them. And Tom Mullen, as you know, is very capable. And, he might actually want a notice to that effect recorded at the registry or something like that.
no, I understand that. That makes more sense. It really would be, it's nothing to the building inspector. It's between the town. Yeah, got it. I understand.
Yeah, so it basically be a letter to the building inspector, Greg, that would say, yeah, we released this for COs subject to our surety agreement, which is attached to the letter.
Yeah, and it's the surety agreement, that's the enforceable document. Yeah,
you got it.
Got it. Yeah.
So here, and what's the average, these are all condos, right?
Correct.
What's the average price of a condo?
Well, if you put the affordables aside, they're $400,000 to $500,000.
They would have to be put aside for the surety, certainly.
Right, and that's what I was getting at. So $400,000 to $500,000. So 5 units.
No, I don't want to know what you think the number of units are. I want to know what the average cost of a condo is here.
I could get you an exact figure, but $450,000 would be the right order of magnitude.
Okay. And I don't know about any of these values as being accurate, just to play devil's advocate. This was a list of values put together by the contractor.
Put together by me. I could,
Okay, I'm just
produce an agreement.
Speaking to other board members.
Is the landscaping piece.
That they look pretty accurate, but.
Or reasonable given their scope, yes?
Yeah.
What's the TBD again? I'm not sure if you skipped over it. Maybe it isn't a big line item, but what's the?
That's
pavement
actually
markings?
part of the special permit agreement, that there was to be some work to be done at the corner of Albion and Foundry with some street markings, but the street markings have never been, we've never really met to finalize them because the project for Harvard Mills next door has, kind of encumbered that whole road, and there's no sense in us doing anything there at the moment.
I think it was like do not block intersection kind of stuff.
It was like a do not block intersection signage, and markings, street markings.
Right.
Okay.
Because this was done before Harvard Mills.
Right.
Yeah, so Brian may have more input on that, but my understanding is there may be some willingness to exchange some other consideration for that piece of work.
I mean, that whole thing has changed because you have the Envision stuff that's gonna be going on down there, so, the town might want a financial contribution rather than doing that work. But it's, we wanted to list it because it's a requirement.
Yep. Okay, no, appreciate clarification. Yep. So that's what's before us, board members. I don't know if Amy or Jim. I mean,
What are they suggesting? For surety. Brian?
I mean, you just said you wanted to make that determination. I think 5 units is excessive, to be honest with you. I mean, you're talking over $2 million of surety, but that's up to you.
But you have dates being complete by 5/28, if I'm right.
Right, if it all comes
And you've got
together,
38 units that aren't sold yet for 2021. So in all reality, those 5 units should never come into play.
That's true.
That's
Right.
correct. The way this is structured.
So it may be excessive,
with that date.
but it certainly takes out a discussion of any of these values because it certainly isn't that type of number.
Yep, point well taken. Got it.
And it's certainly not excessive from the point that a surety is a cash value to the town, whereas these never have cash value to the town. Even if we can't issue COs, there's no way we can ever get the value of them. So
You're right, Greg.
Concept.
Yeah, you are, because you're not really foreclose on it and finish the project.
You can't. Yeah, it's a CO.
No, it's really incentive that,
Yeah,
you look at worst case scenario that Seaver says, hey, I'm walking away from this project. Well, somebody's going to take over the project, be it a bank or a buyer. And there's certainly incentive for them to get this work done, to get those units released so they can sell them. So that,
And I'm sure his margin is already met by selling the 33 other units. So
You'd be surprised.
So my question is I guess my statement, Greg, as well would be, these should be finished units. Right? We shouldn't, if it's surety, we shouldn't have to come in and put countertops and sinks, and these should be completed, done, finished units.
Right, the full value of what we're talking about.
But even beyond that, in all honesty, can we ever go in? It's just a CO. It's just we can't issue a CO. The town can never go in. There's no mechanism for us to enforce going in and selling these off or anything.
Yeah.
Well, there will be, that's what Tom Mullen will put together in a letter.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to like a subdivision, with subdivisions, with the planning board, with lots, there's surety. And basically what you're saying is that the surety that you're going to build the road and put all the infrastructure in is the lots. And you're saying you're not going to sell any lots until that's done. So there's no mechanism for the planning board to foreclose the lots and finish the road. But the mechanism, as we discussed, Greg, is that whoever takes over the project certainly has incentive because they want to sell those 5 units. There's a lot of value there. The building's already built. So
no, understood. But I just want everyone to understand Chip, even though you said that's what Tom Mullen will draft, it's not. He cannot. There is no way for us to foreclose or go into these properties. All it is incentive for the developer, whoever takes it over, if something happens, to continue to finish these. There's no way for the town to ever get monetary value on it.
So why would we do this as compared to a bond?
Exactly.
Well,
it is an incentive. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there is no incentive.
Yeah. I mean, even with a bond, I mean, this is a private property. So, I don't think the town wants to be in the business of going in and finishing a building. Because, this surety is to get these items, is to make sure that these items get done. But, it's not like you know, I don't think the town's gonna wanna hire contractors and go start putting cornices on buildings.
But I guess a want is different than not having any mechanism at all, is what I'm saying.
I'm sorry, Greg?
Oh, wanting to do it but not doing it is different
Yeah.
than having no mechanism at all.
Yeah, I would
And
say that,
maybe we're comfortable going forward. I just want to understand what we're actually doing.
I mean, I would say that knowing Tom and dealing with Tom Mullen for 30 years, he's not gonna recommend the town do that. If the town goes in and does work on this building, they incur liability. What if the work's not done right? Then the unit owners.
Understood.
So, you know, the incentive is that it gets done because of the value of the units.
I mean, Greg, I guess I would go to the point of, we've done this. I don't even know how many times over the last 17 years we've had some surety, whether people have put up money or whatever.
Mhm.
Never once have we had to collect on it.
No,
All the
understood,
projects
but-
get done. All the
But since
projects
this is
get
so
done.
different, and maybe
What?
it's not different. Again, I've only been on the board for 3 years. I want to, truly understand what we're doing when it's just an incentive. There is no.
Right,
and
but what
that's-
I'm saying is that's
Yeah.
probably the case in every one of the last 20 we've done, is that it's just an incentive to get it finished.
And in all the ones that I can remember, Chip, it might be a handful of things, and one of them's probably landscaping because it's winter.
That's
Maybe a
usually
couple of-
what it comes down to, and paving.
And maybe a couple of things like that. This just, like I said up front, the length of the list is what kind of struck me first. Now, again,
But if you look at the dates,
yeah,
many of them should be completed before the first occupancy even is issued.
well, I'm glad we talked through that because that helps me a little bit. But it just, for us tonight to say, here's how we're going to move forward, we have to know that in true faith, they're going to do this in this time frame, and not things are delayed. This guy didn't show up. We got some more snow. We can't do these 3 things. But I do like your idea. They got to be completed in units and not the incomplete, because that, I think, puts more incentive on them because they want those sold. They're ready to go.
This is Tim, if I can comment to that. And as I stated a little bit earlier, tomorrow we'll be launching the final finish selections for those last 16 units that are currently just, warm shells. And so we are taking the very last unit in the building all the way to completion. So that stipulation doesn't really have a negative effect on what we're doing.
Okay.
Normally what we've done, the building's complete. It's really weather conditions, it's landscape, it's asphalt, it's lining. It's those smaller items. You've got a fairly large list of incomplete building items basically here, which we normally don't deal with.
But they all are exterior.
Yes, they are.
They all are weather dependent.
Yes.
I can't see any that aren't.
Well, but normally we would say, no, once you get those things done and the building's tight, we understand that the snow is a problem for planting and finish coat on the drives and the like. But, you guys are going to find a way to get the building done, period. So this is a little, as Dave says, this is a bigger list and a bigger topic, basically, but it's also a bigger building. So the problems are bigger.
All right.
What do you want?
I'm okay with letting Mr. Mullen and Brian figure it out and tell us what to do. Because it's beyond my pay grade, to be honest.
No, I'm with you on that one.
So Brian, realistically, on behalf of your client, and what do we need to determine out of tonight to move forward and do that? Because we'd have to sign something that we need to see drawn up. We can't.
What I would ask
What are you
is,
looking from us tonight?
I'm asking for the board to authorize the release of the project to the building inspector to issue COs as we discussed, subject to holding back five units, and to us working out a surety agreement with town council in the chair, who would be designated to the satisfaction of town council, because I think everybody has a lot of confidence in Tom Mullen that he's not going to do something that's going to jeopardize the town or the board.
Don't we want to wait until that agreement
Yes.
gets written before we sit here and release anything tonight?
Well, I don't know if you got, that's up to you, but I would assume you would have confidence in Tom that, in your chair, that, it's going to be an agreement that, if town council's satisfied with it.
Yeah, I would say, Jim, I'm not gonna look at Tom's and say, no, that's no good. So I would do it contingent upon an agreement being created.
To the satisfaction of town council.
Yeah, and our chair.
I don't have a problem with the concept. It's just the process.
Right, so normally when we've done these, I've written a letter, I've got copies of it that I've used before, and it states simply, that they've met the conditions of our board, or there's, except for these few things, and here's a schedule of when they'll be done, and we're satisfied. We don't mention CO at all. It's up to the building inspector to determine what else there might be. We would condition it with, based on the surety of 5 units, language to be worked out, and, an agreement with town council, et cetera, et cetera. Brian and I can collaborate and make sure the right words are there, but it's basically a letter from this board, from me as chair to the building inspector, with that information, conditioned on that agreement with town.
But I wouldn't send that letter, Dave, till you have the agreement with Tom and Tom's comfortable with the situation.
Brian, did you say you already talked to him about this potential?
No.
Okay, you haven't. Okay.
No.
And to be clear, that's what
Tom,
I was talking about earlier, Dave. It's not just, there needs to be a formal agreement between the town and the developer before we send anything before you even do your letter to send to the building inspector.
I agree with that 100%, Craig. Yeah, you can't send a letter until you have the agreement that the town council's satisfied with.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I go back to what do you want us from? I mean, we're not voting on anything. Are we voting?
You basically, you're authorizing you to send that letter conditioned upon us entering an agreement with you as chair to the satisfaction of town council for surety.
Okay.
I mean, simple as that. And if Tom Mullen says no, then we'll be back because, we're not going anywhere. And you'll be dealing directly with Tom.
Okay, so you need a motion from our board to that effect.
Yes.
To pass, to at least move forward and have that conversation and work out that agreement.
Yeah, with you. And if an agreement can be worked out for the surety with town council, then you will be authorized to send a letter in consultation with town council. I would just work with Tom through the whole thing.
Okay.
Including the language in the letter.
So I'm okay with that. Board members, you're okay?
Well, I'm wondering whether Greg should be part of this conversation to help you, Dave, or at least look it over.
But if he's working with Tom, I mean, it's just going to go from us basically to Tom. Tom's going to say yay or nay, and then Dave either writes the letter or he doesn't.
I wouldn't mind taking a look at it, seeing as Tom isn't here tonight and know exactly what we discussed. Just to all make sure we're all on the same page. That's fine. I serve at the pleasure of the chair.
I have no problem. I can certainly do that.
Storm the Capitol.
So, how many lawyers does it take to drop a surety agreement? Okay. Because Brian will be in the mix too. So
you'd be surprised.
Right. So to keep things moving, I think, that we give Dave the authority to talk with Mr. Mullen about this surety agreement on 69 Foundry Street, given the list that was presented tonight, to be able to move forward with Greg's assistance on the matter.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion?
Do we also want to amend it to say, and then once that letter is signed, Dave is then authorized to send the letter to the building inspector that has.
Do you think it will be done in 2 weeks?
I'll be done sooner. Yeah, we'll get it done.
And even if it's not, then once it's done, it can.
All right, then I would accept that amendment.
Yeah, Greg, I think you meant to say the surety, not the letter. Once the surety.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. All right, and a second on the amended motion. Thank you, Amy. Any discussion on the amended motion? Okay, go with, Chip, Amy, Jim, myself, and Greg, why don't you vote on this one just because you're now part of it? All in favor, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay,
You.
so, thank you for the summary.
Thank you, members of the
Brian,
board.
Tim, yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the project being completed, as I'm sure you are, but we'll
Yes, sir.
work in the coming days to get this one cleared. All right.
Brian, were we gonna do that other second minor
Oh.
issue with the landscaping?
Yep, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hang on.
And now they throw the minor issue in.
Exactly. They buttered us up. Yeah.
No, this is, Brian, you want to introduce it or you want me to take it?
Here you
Did
go.
I just lose you guys?
What do you mean?
No.
You
we can
hear
still
me?
hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I lost all visual.
We can see you.
Yeah. We can still see
Really?
your ugly face.
It's probably behind your screen. Minimize your screen. It's probably back there somewhere.
In your right-hand corner of your screen, way up high in the corner. Is your wife sleeping?
Well, keep going. Don't let me stop you.
Can you see? this?
Okay, so on the western elevation of the building or the rear of the building, which faces the residential neighbors on Lake Street, we'll have our vinyl 6-foot stockade fence along the property line, but there are porches and decks and bedrooms and other living areas looking down at our site. When Jim McBain was on site a couple of months ago for a look around, he saw these gas meters. We have 84 gas meters for the building, one for each unit plus one for the house. And they're all arranged in 3 rows along the wall as depicted in this photograph that was taken a couple of weeks ago. And at the time, Jim had asked if we would provide landscape screening in front of the meters. Our original landscape plan presented to the board probably 2 years ago had general landscaping in the area, rhododendrons, ground covers and the like, and I think one dogwood tree. But with Jim's request, we took a second look at it to provide a better visual screen and came up with the plan that Vanna White here has put up, which simply put, Brian, if you can put the mouse in the upper left-hand corner there, that area there. The gas company asked for a 3-foot wide service walkway made out of crushed stone. So we've provided for that along the edge of the building. And then we went with arborvitaes where the meters were at the densest point in that inside corner of the building. And then from the arborvitaes, it kind of tears down towards the front of the planting bed and just transitions into grass, which is the yellowish area, not really shown in any detail there.
And
So
how
it was really
tall are
just a
the
matter of
arborvitaes?
flipping out one type of tree and shrub for something that was a little more evergreen and dense to help screen those things on a more year-round basis.
And how tall are the arborvitae?
I believe they're planted at 6 to 7 feet, and arborvitaes.
What's the top of the meter at this point?
About 6 or 7 feet.
I don't even think it's that, Chip, because the windows,
The windows, do they actually cover the window or go by
They
a
do.
window?
it's
They
in the
do.
garage. It's in the garage.
It's the garage. It's the garage window.
So the answer is yes.
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 And the 2 windows behind the trailer, are those windows or doors?
They're windows.
Right to the left of the meters?
Yes. I'm sorry, the planted height of the arborvitae's on the schedule that's attached is 7 to 8 feet.
7 to 8?
7 to 8
Okay with
feet.
7 to 8
Yeah, there's a planning schedule, Chip.
for that area.
Yeah, there's a dark, put the glasses on, there's a dark American arborvitae at the bottom of the shrubs section.
Yeah.
And that would be the dominant, piece that would be in kind of an L shape to.
Right, can you just go back up? I want to see where's the magnolia, it's getting late. And
That went
spruce.
away.
It went away.
I think it was a dogwood. If I said magnolia, excuse me, but I think it was a.
It was on the planting list as magnolia.
Well, no, there's a magnolia
Unless that's
somewhere
is that a
else.
different, what
That's the
planting list did you
list for
just
the
show
entire
us?
project. There's a magnolia somewhere else, but there had been a dogwood.
Oh, this is the entire project?
Yeah, that's correct.
I just asked if this was for that back area.
Well, it's the same key, but it's the entire project. So like if you take number 3, right?
No, that's the quantity of
Oh,
each.
my bad. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, so the plant schedule is for the entire project, and the individual tags on the plan that I gave you tells you how many of each in that particular area. And you'll see 6 dark American arborvitae's.
Is that so that would be the only place those are going on the property?
I believe so, yes. I don't recall there being any other reason for arborvitae's on the property.
That's all. There's only 6 listed on your planting schedule.
Then that would be consistent with my recollection. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, arborvitae, as much as I hate them, is probably, and American are probably more cylindrical, and I mean, I don't think 6 is gonna do it, but it's a good start. 7 to 8, you should be fine. And how big are the hollies?
The blue
Or you
hollies,
can just screen up again.
36 to 42 inch height in a container at planting.
So here's my problem with what, that doesn't, so as you go back to the drawing now, as you go and look at your meters on, I keep thinking you can like see me, the meters on the edge, you've got some big meters out at the edge of that building. These aren't even gonna block those. Go back to the picture of the meters, please. So if you go to the, where I would say the edge of the building.
The outside corner.
Yeah, the outside corner, those hollies don't block any of the view down the side of the building. They would come up to about where that regulator is.
Right, so are you maybe heading towards?
I would suggest putting some more arborvitae's around that corner. It's the back of the building. They're horrible plants, but I would block that as much as you can so that the neighbors aren't staring at that god-awful thing.
I mean, I could take a pair of arborvitae's and, flank them on either side of those regulators, which they're like a 12-inch round disc.
Yeah, no, they're big. Yeah, I would just visually block as much of that stuff as you can.
Our landscape architect will take care of that.
Yeah. With arborvitae's.
Not a problem.
Even if you need to eliminate 1 or 2 of the hollies, because space won't allow you to fit it in.
Any other comments from board members?
Are there anything else on the building that we don't know about?
No, this is the worst thing. It's like Bennett Street, but we're double that,
I mean, this is tough, yeah.
or triple it, should I say.
All right. Thank you
Okay.
for bringing it to our attention, Jim.
Can't miss it.
I guess not.
So Brian, you need us to find that this is
Well, I
This
think,
the adjustment to the landscape plan is a minor modification.
yeah, and Tim's gonna have the landscape architect revise it.
Right, with the revisions noted, but we can at least move forward and say that go for, I mean, not that you're planting them tomorrow, but we can get that adjusted and stamp that plan.
Yep.
With that finding.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone not comfortable moving forward? All right, Chair would entertain a motion to that effect
I
if
move
someone
that
wanted to
with
make
it.
it. Yep.
I move that the landscape for the gas meters to hide it and hide them is a minor modification to the original plan.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Is there a reference page here that we can reference? A
I
date?
believe it's L203 of the original drawing set, Jim, I believe.
So it's a Radnor design dated February 9th, 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, for this, I thought you were referring to the original drawing.
No.
But this will,
It's being modified.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll modify it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim, will you email that to me when you get it?
Yes.
Chip, I'll just send it to you and Dave to make sure you look at it, make sure it's right.
sounds good. Any
Yeah,
other
I mean,
discussion?
I at this point, Brian, I'd almost like to make it contingent upon viewing it after it's planted and make sure that it's enough. Because it might look fine on paper and not actually hide them.
We can include that in the letter.
Yeah, just, if we need to,
Yeah.
I'll take a look at it. I'll go down the day they're laying them out. I mean, it's tough to know whether 6 or 7 or 8's the right number.
Okay.
That's so god awful. It's horrendous.
Did we carry a contingency for additional landscape elsewhere
Nope.
in the decision?
No, they did a nice job with the landscaping plan. There really wasn't any area that was going to be in question.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion on the motion? All right. Regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, so let's move forward on that, and I'll look for that update from you, Brian, when you get it.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank
We all
you.
set? All set with 69 Foundry tonight?
Yep.
All right. Thank you all for your time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, and I think that's it for you, Brian. So have a good night.
You too, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate your
Bye,
time.
Brian.
Good night.
Safe.
Okay. Our final other matter for the evening, case 19-48, 27 and 37 Water Street LLC and 450 Water Street. Discuss final site plan and temporary occupancy and surety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Michael.
Welcome back, Mike. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for hanging in there. Frank Prosciutto is joining us tonight. I represent Frank as principal of the entity, 27 Water Street LLC, in connection with this request before the board tonight. So generally speaking, just to frame it, we're looking for something similar to what Brian's client just asked for. We're looking simply to satisfy whatever concerns the board may have with respect to unfinished outside work through a surety, in our case, a cash surety, or a bond. For the sole purposes of allowing the building inspector at his discretion and as he sees fit and appropriate to conduct final inspections and issue temporary COs. The project's been a long time in the making, as you well know, and Frank is certainly aware of that, but it's getting very, very close to completion. There's kind of 3 broad categories that I have to discuss, and I'll be as brief as possible given the hour. But one of them, when we met out there, was board needed an as-built plan. Everybody needed an as-built plan. Paul Finocchio was retained to do that. Paul was not the original site surveyor, so it took a little while. He had a lot of work to do, but he's produced the as-built plan. Part of the other kind of general broad concept that we discussed with the board was that the fire department needed a look at that plan, and they needed to pass upon, among other things, the access into and out of the property, and in particular, the access in the area of the Omelet House. So Paul Finocchio developed the site plan. I think it was dated January 18th. It was a January date. The fire, and Frank can attest to this. Frank was out there with the fire department, but fire department came out. I don't know if it was the chief or the lieutenant, but wanted a curb moved, wanted to eliminate 3 parking spots and to move a curb so that there was greater truck access into the area by the Omelet House, which by the way is 57 Water Street. If you noticed in the fire department letter, chief referenced 57 because it's in the area of the Omelet House. But in any event, Paul Finocchio detailed that. Paul, if you're on and you can call up your site plan, that'd be a big help. Maybe I can do it. Sorry.
I'm not even sure Paul's still with us.
All right.
I think he gave up. You guys hung in there. We hung in there.
Yeah, you certainly did. I just tried to share.
I'm here.
Oh, Paul's here.
Paul, can you share that? Or do you have that? Is that can you see that plan?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So in this area over here, where I'm waving the hand, is the area that shows as detail A over on the right side. It's essentially eliminating those 3 spots. The chief wrote a letter. Can you see the letter now on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Which essentially said that he wanted those 3 spots removed. He wanted labeled no parking. So the plan that you see now as an as-built it shows the way the fire department wants it, and a curb still has to be moved. So that would be one item for a bond. The other item would be the landscaping. Now, when we were out there, at last for a board visit, the landscaper was there. Frank has installed most, if not all, of the plantings. There are irrigation systems, I think in all but maybe a small spot out front. The plan has been noted to reflect that. But I also understand that there may be some issues when Chip and Jim and maybe some other board members looked at the landscaping. Maybe there are some other issues there. So more than willing to bond, any reasonable amount there. So we're really looking at the potentially bonding for whatever landscaping the board may want to might think is appropriate. For the fire department, just the movement of that curb. And then there's finally, in terms of the third category, it's the sidewalk out front. That is something that my client was prevented from finishing because of the town regulation with respect to calendar cutoffs for doing outside concrete or asphalt work. It's expected that we'll be able to complete that work on April 15th or soon thereafter, depending on the contractor availability and the weather. We have an estimate of that $4,500, which I hope is on your screen. That $4,500 came right out of the master contract with this site contractor. So that should be pretty accurate. So just to sum up, we're looking to bond the sidewalk, $4,500 or whatever you might think appropriate. The landscaping, whatever you might think appropriate, and the cost of moving the curbing, which I would, we didn't get a figure on that, but I would defer to, to Chip or
It's included in the 4,500.
Frank on that. Sorry?
It's included in the 4,500.
Oh, it is. It's included in the 4,500.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Frank. Okay, good. Thank you. So that's essentially it. We're under a, as the board is well aware, we're under an enforcement order with the building inspector to perform curative action to get these things wrapped up ASAP. And by these things, I mean the final details on the inside of the building, and get this thing done and wrapped up quickly, which is, I'm sure, what the board would like to see, what Frank would like to see, and certainly what I would like to see. I would add that, very briefly, that the fire department has been out, they've inspected it. The sprinkler system has been live for a while, but it's fully inspected. They inspected all the smokes. Those are all passed. I think the fire department is pretty much all set except for that curb. They were actually out there today, believe it or not, running the hydrant. They were running trucks around the building to lay out a plan in case they have how to attack a fire there. They even ran hoses through the building. So they're pretty much good to go except for the curb. There's a lot of history here on this project. You know, everybody's just trying to get it across the goal line right now. Certainly the building inspector has been very good. You know, he's all business, very professional. Despite recent hiccups, you know, an opportunity to grab a pound of flesh, you know, I think like the rest of us would just like to see this get done the right way and across the goal line. So, Frank, did you want to add anything?
No. I mean, we would have had the curbing all done. United Civil finished the week before Thanksgiving, and we went back to the town engineer and he said, nope, he wouldn't let us do it. I mean, or else, and it was 55 degrees that whole week, and that would have been, it was 2 days worth of work.
I'm sorry, just a moment, Mike. Doesn't the fire department, they do a run through, they do the panel, they do everything, and then they sign something that says, this is all great, you're good to go?
At the CO.
And then at the CO, not before the CO? Before the CO or at the CO?
When the building inspector is going to issue the CO, I think they have an opportunity to sign off. Certainly, he's coordinating with them.
But the fire department hasn't signed off yet, and the building inspector's got issues inside.
I think, I think, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the fire department, it has indicated that they're all set. And there are inspection issues inside, but they're typical. There are no, that I'm aware of, there are no problems inside in terms of finishing out the construction. Frank, you want to add that?
We even have the fire hydrants up. We have everything. I mean, the project is 100% completed by March 5th.
You're saying that, but we haven't had that yet.
Well, but Mike, those sort of inspections are outside our purview.
Right, we're not asking you
the building department to manage.
Yeah, no.
He's asking us to say, is the project complete, like we just talked about in Foundry.
Yeah, exactly.
And it relates, and this unfortunately goes back so many months. I wish it didn't, but we had that on-site meeting back in August. We went through the landscaping, we went through the parking, and the plan was to, you know, get an updated plan and finalize that for landscaping. I think we got it. I just don't have a copy. I don't know. It wasn't in the latest package, Mike. Just so if we're going to sign off on something, we know what the list is, or it may be Jim or others or Chip can speak to that. But on the parking, you've provided the letter and the chief's letter. Yeah, I was questioning the 57 Water Street. I didn't know why I didn't put that together with, that's where the Omelet House is. I did note on the plan, if you want to switch back to that,
sure.
The final parking plan. Again, I didn't go walk the site to see that this is it, but you're representing that this is it. This is the as-built. That's how it's labeled. The only discrepancy I sort of noted here was in the corner. It says that there are 63 spaces on the upper level, which there appear to be by counting them, but that note says 60 spaces.
60, right. Yeah.
So, you know, ideally it should be consistent, because over on the right, there's a little table summary and it does say 63, and that's what it is. But
yeah, I apologize. I had that in my comments, my notes, and I skipped over it. But we'll make that correction.
The other question I have regarding the as-built, Mr. Chair, is did we originally waive the 9 by 18?
Yes,
we did.
Yeah,
because they allowed 8.5 by 18.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't remember.
Yeah. I think the 9 by 18 chip was all along where the old tracks used to be, because that's where we have them.
Yeah, it's actually a zoning law, so you had to get a variance to allow the 8.5 to.
Right.
Which I just wanted to make sure we had done previously.
So did I hear?
Sorry, Tim.
Did I hear the fire department wants to eliminate those 3 spaces at the entry? And
no, it's actually,
that cause a problem with the number of units we have, of spaces we have?
No, it's not the entry. It's actually the 2 right next to Omelet that they were looking to get rid of.
Oh, the no parking?
Yeah.
I thought I heard 3.
You did. I misunderstood myself, and I just got briefed on this recently.
Does that affect our count?
No.
If you're eliminating 2, it would eliminate 2. I went back, Jim, to the decision and reviewed it, the original decision. There is no specific count that was allowed. It was just per the plan. And
Well, then we can count the plan, and figure out what it was.
yeah, you'd be eliminating 2.
So we have to make a decision whether we're gonna take 2 parking spots out of this thing.
Is that correct, Frank?
Yes, yep.
Yes.
Because they're not being replaced somewhere, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so one's right up against the building. That I think actually, Chip, you made a comment on it that you wanted to kind of see those gone too, because you didn't feel that you were comfortable right up against the building.
So if I thought he said 3 spaces.
I did, and I misspoke. I
Yeah.
misunderstood myself.
It's all,
No, I think the letter says 3.
no, it's the way
Bring
that
the
the
letter
letter,
back up.
it's for the 3 spots at the angle that we have to move the curb cut.
He would agree to 3 slanted ones instead of 4.
Yeah, that's the
Right.
That's the detail.
Closest to the building, okay.
The only other thing I was hoping to get out of this letter, and I thought we agreed to it, is that it would actually reference the plan. We would give him an as-built plan and he would say, I've reviewed plan dated blah from this engineer, Finocchio, and I sign off on it, right? What he did is he said, he's had a conversation with you and he's okay as long as you do these things. And you've represented these things on the plan that we're seeing. So it sort of gets us there. I think the board was looking for him to actually sign off on an updated plan, but he's done it, I think, essentially through the letter with
should be.
representation on the plan. But
See,
that's,
what happened, I dropped off the plan to him for January 18th, which was the as-built, and that's when he came back with the letter saying that he wanted those 2 parking spaces taken out, and he would okay 3 parking spots at an angle.
Yep. And that's why the plan, if you go back to the plan, has that date of January 18th and then
Right.
a rev date of
February 18th, I think, or something, February 10th, or
yeah, down the bottom. Yeah. So that's why it's
Yeah.
revved to reflect the chief's recommendations. So just for the
Exactly.
board members,
So we would have to, Dave, I think, find that losing those 2 spots and marking them as no parking along the side of the omelet factory is a minor modification.
well, yes, and going back to the original parking plan, I didn't compare every space to the original plan. I think part of this as-built was the original plan that we approved might have had wider aisle widths and may have referenced 9 by 18 spaces. So I mean, I think it's just an overall, this plan as built, which reflects the upper and lower decks being sort of as is, or as built, differ from that original plan. And as part of that, there are 2 fewer spaces. So I think it's part of the overall changes, if I'm not mistaken. Frank, is that your?
I believe that's accurate.
I believe that the 8.5 was always in the original plan. I don't think that's ever changed.
Oh, maybe it was, because I remember we were out there with the big set of plans and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
so
think
it's
the
all
parking-
small, Yeah.
There were some inaccuracies in the
Yeah.
original. Yeah.
So we said, give us an as-built that we're gonna, the
Right.
reality of what we have today, what we will see at the end of the day, and that's what this is. So
Right.
as
Right.
part of that, we're losing 2, but there's some other differences, and we could either try to articulate them.
So do we have 175 spaces?
You
Yeah.
actually, yeah, the count was verified, yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna end up with 173.
No, this plan
No.
shows 175.
175, yeah.
Along omelet factory is labeled as no parking now?
Right.
Yeah, that's the 175.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think some of the stuff around the landscaping and the surface area may have changed a little bit too, where the handicaps are, right? And that, all these little jogs out here in the back. I think some of that.
But I'm confused.
Yeah.
This says it's as built 175 spots, right?
with the revision of
This
last
is
week.
correct, right? 175 spots. The fire department then said, eliminate the two next to the omelet factory and label it as no parking there, correct?
Yep.
So how do we still have 175 spots? They just said, now we have 173, correct? And everybody went, no, we still have 175. How?
No, because it's the plan for January 18th, I believe had a couple more spots. And when the fire department came back and said eliminate those two, that's where you got the 175.
This plan that I'm looking at that Paul has signed has the two spots next to the omelet factory, does it not?
No,
No, it says no parking. If you
It
zoom
says
in.
no parking.
Why are there still spaces there then? There should be no, there should say no parking along the side of the building and no space, and no spaces marked off.
Paul, are you out there?
Yep, those spaces were there, and then I was told the plan permit is no parking, so I put no parking on the plan in front of the omelet. And those
Okay,
are-
so are you saying that there's 175, Paul,
I believe so.
without those two?
Yes, correct. I can't see the upper right-hand corner of the screen. It has the total numbers there. I can't see that.
So it does not include those two next to
No.
the omelet factory?
Correct.
All right, so when you go to reline this or whatever you're gonna do, wipe out the parking spots and just put no parking. So that there's
Exactly.
not spots there,
Right.
right? Black out the white lines or yellow lines or whatever they are next to the building and just have it listed as no parking, not no parking through spaces.
Exactly.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion.
No, it's confusing.
It is.
All right, can I talk about landscape for a minute?
Yep.
Yeah, are we done here? I just want to make sure.
We
Is
through
every-
parking?
I just want to make sure, is everyone clear? What the ask is, that this is the plan with some parking elements, the curb and sidewalk that would need to be bonded. And then striping, would striping be part of that? Because the final striping maybe isn't done, or is it, again?
No, the final striping is pretty much all done except for the bottom level parking garage because it got too cold. But we gotta black out where the no parking is and put no parking where those two spots are next to omelet. That was it.
Okay, I mean,
And the
So it's
angled
not-
parking, and the angled parking up front, right?
Angle parking, that's
what
already,
Fire department wants?
we already did that. Yeah, it's already there.
Oh, as if the curb was done?
Yes. Because we thought we were gonna have the curb done in November.
Yeah.
We waited,
Okay.
United Civil,
Yeah.
finished, and then we thought we'd be able to go right after them, and he's,
Okay.
even though we had the permit, the town engineer said no.
okay, so we're good with the parking elements. All right, Jim, go.
All right, so in September, we all went out there, met with a landscaper basically, and talked about what was going to be done. We were given a list. We agreed to change a few plants basically because they worked better. Then after town meeting in November, Chip and I went out there, looked, and some of the plantings didn't look like as much planting was there as should be there, and we could not find anything for a drip irrigation system or any irrigation system for that matter. And I think there was some issue as to whether the tree was the right size, and there was some bushes missing out front in the planter. So my suggestion at this moment, since spring is coming shortly, is that we hold the money that we originally were holding on the planting and not release it until this work is completely done and it's been reviewed, and then release the money.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yep.
Do we have the final plan as built final did we already make a finding and that's what you're referring to, Jim?
It may have been issued at the time. I'd have to go back to my record. It issued to us at the time we were out there in September.
Right.
It was, as to what they were gonna do.
Right.
Yeah. And before that, we had some sort of agreement on monies, which came before that, I think. Might have even come the spring before, I don't know. or the, yeah, whatever.
Okay. All right.
Mike, do you remember how much we're holding?
I don't. I was actually proposed that, I mean, we could leave it the way it was. I don't remember it, Chip. I'm sorry.
I think you guys were holding, wasn't it 10? Or 8, something like that. It wasn't,
I don't have with the Zoom and everything, I'm not in my office. I don't have all my files with me. But we're certainly happy to keep it there, whatever level it was. We're certainly not asking to decrease it or.
No, my question was, is it enough to cover everything that needs to get done?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like it is.
Well, the only thing, the planting it probably covers it. If the irrigation system's not in, I don't think that was even
But he
considered.
says it is. I mean.
yeah, the irrigation system's in. It's not with drip. He actually used sprinkler heads. Because, he had to cover some larger area.
That's easy to run through and see that it's there.
Yeah, and you can see the cut right in the pavement that they made to run all the pipes into the island.
All right, well, at the time, we'll tell you to turn it on and we'll see.
Exactly.
So I've got the file here with me, other matters back January, a year ago, 2020. Extension on sidewalk landscaping stonework paving issue will be bonded 38,800. Not including paving. Chip feels it should be 50,000. Chip moved to waive the bonding because the whole project has to be complete and they will knock in occupancy on 27, or they will come back and bond the rest. So no approval at that time. So that was a year ago, January. So numbers were thrown about, but we didn't actually vote to bond anything at that time. Just saying.
Well, why don't we, might I suggest that you pick a number on landscaping that you would be comfortable with, and let's say that number is 10, 10, I don't know what it is, but say it's 10 and there is 8 there, then you need to come up with another 2. And if there's not 8 there, then they need to come up with the whole, whatever I don't want to throw Frank's money around, but 10 is.
And then there's 4,500 for the curb work.
Right. Yeah.
And what else? What was the third thing?
The sidewalk and moving that front curbing, but Frank said that's included in the 4,500.
Yeah, I already have the curbing. It's in underneath the parking garage. I mean, it's ready to go. Like I said, this would have been done in November. Wouldn't have been an issue.
It was an issue across the town, not just on this site.
Yeah.
Deadline is his deadline. That's just what it is.
So do we have to try to estimate a number for landscaping and add it to the?
Well, I'd say 8 or 10. I mean, quite a bit of it was in there. I think there's just some issues that are there.
Probably be dead stock too.
So if it were 8 and it's 45 for the sidewalk, that's 12.5. Why don't we just call it 15?
That's what I was just gonna say.
That's fine with me. I'm okay with that if everybody else is.
Fine here.
Okay. To cover landscape and moving the curb and the sidewalk work. Okay. Anything else?
And then you can issue your letter, Dave.
Right. Based on agreement in this bond, Mike, so we should talk offline about that. And get that.
We'll get
squared away.
we'll get an agreement.
Okay.
Mike, you want me to, should I just give the money to Mike?
We're probably gonna want to, well, we'll work it out, Frank. We'll work the details out.
Yeah, I mean, 15,000. I mean, I probably, I can either give you, the money or, I could probably get it.
Work it out.
Yeah. Okay. So unless there's any other comments, questions, board members, I think we just need a motion.
I move that we allow you and Mr. McCarthy to work out a agreement relating to landscaping and curbing that still needs to be finished for surety of $15,000.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay.
And
We're getting there.
That as an okay on the 2 spots coming out as a
Yep.
minor mod.
Oh, Yeah, so that should be a
Well,
separate vote.
I move that we just accept the as-built as an as-built
Second.
Yep,
with the correct number of spaces as listed.
as listed, yep.
Perfect.
Thank you. Second, Amy, any discussion on that?
Note January 30th, 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Well, no,
There's a revised date.
there's a revised date of February 18th,
18.
Yes.
February 18th. Okay, so with the amended motion and the noted plan date, Amy, seconded?
Second, yep.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amended motion? All right, same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe?
You did.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And I vote yes. So that 2 passes. Lance, parking plan 218. Okay. All right. Is that it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, thank you all and good night.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Yep.
Thank you. Good luck finishing.
Thanks. We'll see you. Bye.
Bye. All right. I think that was the other matters. Clerk and board comments. Anything for tonight, folks?
Nope.
Okay. We have minutes from February 10th to approve.
I move that we approve the minutes from February 10th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom?
Yep.
Mike
Yes.
and Greg.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
I have a question. Why does Gail still have to write minutes if these are all being recorded and
I
documented?
know, I want to know that too.
You asked the question to Tom Mullen, Gail. Go right after him.
I know.
Wait a minute, it's a video as well as
I know.
recording.
It sucks.
Stuck.
Put that in next week's minutes.
Yeah.
Can
Before
I
we-
ask that we have an executive meeting at the next meeting to discuss this whole thing about how many people can attend a party and have a drink at the same time?
I
You
think
mean
it's
they-
already been talked about and answered from what I saw today.
Well, I won't get into discussion. I just think that maybe we need to straighten out our process a little bit.
I
Okay.
move that we adjourn before
Well-
I fall asleep at the
Well-
wheel here.
You already did that. I saw you.
Probably.
Okay. Motion to adjourn has been made.
I seconded it.
See everybody in a couple weeks.